Wow, hey, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Thanks for tuning in once again. Appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. All right, so today just gonna be talking about the so-called Black Dutch. Well, for many that already been following me for a long time, you guys kind of already know what that term might imply. The different genealogical ethnicities and people represented under that title. We're gonna go over it again. I read a book on it on an old video, but we never finished the book, so we're gonna go ahead and finish it today. Some new recordings with some old information as well, just so we can put it all together. Thanks again for being here, and if you're in the chat, uh, appreciate you guys being here for the live. Try to stay on topic, um, and be respectful and all that. I really appreciate that. All right. So just a reminder, we've gone over a lot of information. When we're talking about so-called Black Dutch, a lot of so-called historians like to say, well, they're just talking about some of the Dutch people or people from the Netherlands or Germans that mix with the Spanish, right? Or people that have black hair, right? So we're gonna touch the hijack and generalizations big time. As you see here, these are some of the old videos. Um, it says here physical description of the original people of Europe, part 1, 2, and 3, in case you haven't checked it out. We showed many references of people in what they were calling the Netherlands today and Germany, uh, originally being of dark complexion, a lot of them. Not just light skin, there was light skinned people, but there was also many very dark complexion people, what you would call Negro people in these areas that were from this area, indigenous, that were there for a long, long time, according to their oral traditions. So I'm gonna go ahead and go over one of them real quick. It's part 1 right here, just an example of what we have in here. All right. Let's see. Let me go to a part. Let's see.
Nueva Salsita.
Uh-huh. Touch the hijack. My fault, guys. Yeah, we live. So thanks for tuning in once again. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, Taco Bell. All right, come on, man. Yeah.
Lowell Institute Lectures by William C. Ripley,
So this book we're reading real quick is The Races of Europe, a sociological study.
Ph.D., Assistant Professor of Sociology, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That's MIT.
So William S. Ripley is the author. All right. All right, let me see if we can go around here. Let me see. We're actually sorry guys, we're gonna get into this book. My fault. The origin of the Anglo-Saxon race. We're talking about Dutch and Germans and all this stuff, right? So
The settlement of England and the tribal origin of the Old English people by the late Thomas William Shore, author of A History of Hampshire, etc., Honorary Secretary, London and Middlesex Archaeological Society, Honorary Organizing Secretary of the Hampshire Field Club and Archaeological Society, edited by his sons T.W. Shore and L.E. Shore. All right, this is from 1906. We're all the way in chapter 6. It says Rugians, Wends, and tribal Slavonic settlers. Now it says here that the name Wends was given by the old Teutonic nations of Germany to those Slavonic tribes who were located in the countries east of the Elbe and south of the Baltic Sea. It isn't the same as the older name used by Ptolemy, who says that the Wendnedae are established along the whole of Wendish Gulf. Tacitus also mentions the Venedi, There can therefore be no doubt that these people were seated on the coast of Mecklenburg and Pomerania before the time of the Anglo-Saxon settlement, that there were some differences in race between the Wends of various tribes is probable from the existence of such large tribes among them as the Wiltzi and the Obodriti, who in time of Charlemagne formed opposite alliances, the former with the Saxons, the latter with the Franks. The Wends who still exist in Lower Saxony are of a dark complexion. They are of a dark complexion and are the same stock as the Sorbs or Serbs of Servia. They are Slavonic, but many tribes of Slavonic descent are fair in complexion, so many of them are light-skinned. Procopius tells us that those Vandals who were allies of the ancient Goths were remarkable for their tall stature, pale complexion, and blonde hair. It is therefore by no means improbable that the ancient Slavic tribes of the Baltic coast were distinguished by differences in complexion. So they're letting you know that there was different types of Slavic people. There was light-skinned Slavics and dark complexion. Must be more original. The same migratory movement in lesser degree appears to have extended even into England, bringing into our country some Slavonic settlers, probably in alliance with Saxons, Angles, Goths, and other tribes, and some later on in alliance with Danes. The existence of separate large tribes among the Wends is probable evidence of racial differences, and the alternative names they had are probably those by which were known to themselves and to their neighbors. The remnant at the present time of the dark complexioned Wends of Saxony, who called themselves Sorbs, all right, shows that there must have been some old Wendish tribe of similar complexion from which they are descended, as the country anciently occupied by the Wiltzi included Brandenburg and the district around Berlin. It joined the limits of ancient Saxony on the west.
All right, so black Germans that are from that region. So it's not just from Spanish influence or people mixing in with so-called Africans, because that's always the hijack they try to tell us. Anybody they find in Europe before, or at any point in history, they always want to say it's an African, or they talking about people with black hair or people who mix with Iberians. It's not always the case. We've shown many references, as I'm showing you right now, of original people of Europe being so-called black with dark complexion, swarthy, many references of that. Let me see if I have another. Let me see if we can go a little ahead.
Edward the Elder about AD 900. So it says, as regards the ancient brown race or races of North Europe, there can be no doubt of their existence in the southeast of Norway and in the east of Friesland. There can be no doubt about the important influence which the old Wendish race has had in the northeastern parts of Germany and transmitted to their descendants a more brunette complexion than prevails among the people of Hanover, Holstein, and Westphalia, of more pure Teutonic descent. We cannot reasonably doubt that in view of such survival of brown people as we find at the present time in the provinces of North Holland, Drenthe, and Overijssel, which form the hinterland of the ancient Frisian country, numerous brunettes must have come into the England among the Frisians. It says the consideration of the evidence that people of brunette complexions were among the Anglo-Saxon settlers in England leads on to that of people of a still darker hue, the dark black or brown black settlers. Probably there must have been some of these among the Anglo-Saxons, for we meet with the personal names Blackman, Blakeman, Blackaman, Blackasunu, Blacka, and Blatchiman or Blachman in various documents of the period. All right, Blacka was an ealdorman of Lindsey who was converted by Paulinius. Blackman was the son of Eldric, a descendant of Ida, ancestor of Elhred, king of Bernicia, and so on. The same kind of evidence is met with among the oldest place names. Blackenberg is mentioned in Anglo-Saxon charter. Blackmanstone was the name of a place in Dorset, and Blackenmanstone that of a place in Kent. Blackenshell. There's another old word used by the Anglo-Saxons to denote black or brown black, the word swart. All right, we know that, the swarthy, right, swart. The personal name Stuart or Suart may have been derived from this word, the same Stuart, right? The Stuarts, Swart, which means black. So this word may be derived from that and may have originally denoted people of a dark brown or black complexion. Some names of this kind are mentioned in the Domesday Record of Buckinghamshire and Lincolnshire. These may be of Scandinavian origin, for the economy or nickname Swarty is found in the northern sagas. Halfdan the Black was the name of King of Norway, who died in 863. The so-called black men of the Anglo-Saxon period probably included some of the darker Wendish people among them, immigrants or descendants of people of the same race as the ancestors of the Sorbs of Lausatia. All right. So I know I'm reading and I hope people's understanding, but letting us know that there was black Anglo-Saxons. So like people try to say, like Benjamin F. Franklin earlier saying, oh, the only white people are the Anglo-Saxons. Well, some of them were, but not all of them were. All right. Borders of, it says, the ancestors of the Sorbs of Lausatia on the borders of Saxony and Prussia at the present day. Some of the darker Wends may well have been among the black Vikings. All right. Black what? The black Vikings referred to in the Irish annals. Black Vikings. All right. Isn't this really Vikings? Because if we break down that letters, those letters, and we separate the V and the I, it becomes 6 kings. We put a space in between those and we look at it like Roman numeral, the 6 kings, the Vikings.
6 kings, all right. So yeah, let me see if I got another one reference here. Let's see.
Complexions. Weringa or Werinch is Hertfordshire. The probable connection of the Wends, some tribes of whom which are the Sorbs are known to have been dark, with parts of the Germany near Brunswick and with parts of Herts and Bucks is shown by these names. Domesday Book tells us Huscarls in Buckinghamshire and a people who bore such names as Swarting, Suart or Suan, Suart, and Swauart among its land holders, and it is difficult to avoid the conclusion that such names refer to people of dark complexions. All right. If they got last names like Seward, Stewart, Seward, all right, it's hard to avoid that they have dark complexions. Among the Lamens of Lincoln, a very Danish town, there were also apparently some so-called Danes of a dark complexion. All right, who's the Danes? In Hampshire, however, we do not meet with general blunt type. Of the New Forest district, McIntosh says, the New Forest is inhabited by a mixture of races which almost defy classification. The complexion in general being dark. All right, in general being what? Dark. And this.
All right, so it starts going in. That's part 1. Again, check out all 3 parts if you haven't. I go in on many regions of Europe. All right, there's 3 videos on that. Just wanted to show you that there was already dark complexion people in Germany before any so-called Spaniard or Iberian, or as we're gonna see, Sephardic Moorish people arrived there. All right. So, we've got a lot of videos. Make sure to check them out, catch up. All right. Also, we've shown many European coat of arms, family crests of black nobles of Europe, and actually many from Germany. This is the playlist. If you haven't checked this out, I have 5 parts of that filled with nothing but family crests showing black nobles. All right, so you guys can see how much minutes there each one is. That's a lot of crests. It's called European Coat of Arms of Black Nobles. Check out my playlist tab. I have a lot of playlists created already for you, especially for the new people that are kind of arriving late. We've been here 6 years, but it's all right. You're on time. You're right on time. So European coat of arms. In this one, we're looking at the Gallery Armorial, part 1. Real quick, it says an armorial produced in the late 14th century by Claes Heinensohn, containing 1800 European coat of arms. All right, so like real sources, guys. Let me just show you some examples here. All right. So as you guys can see, Let's see. Oh, dodged the hijack. Sorry about that, but thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. You know, we live. Again, these are all from Germany. And you guys just read how much coat of arms they have here represented. And they got their surnames on these crests, as you guys can see. And these are not slaves or anything like that. That's a hijack. That's what they want you to think. All right, so I'm going through it. Make sure to check it out if you haven't. You know, it's a lot of good information. Let's see what we're saying here.
1395, all right? 1395.
Right, real quick, huh? We're at the Brotherhood of St. Christoph of Alberg. It says about us, the Brotherhood St. Christopher was founded in 1386 by Heinrich de Foundling, an orphan and simple herdsman. The Brotherhood now has over 20,000 members from all over the world. All right.
So what they're doing is preserving these family crests, you know, very old, and so they have so many collections. We actually went into a lot of them. All right, and many of them is just emblems, but a lot of them do show people, like this one. Hold on, as you guys can see. All right, and let's see if we get another one. All right. Again, you know, Germany, Bavaria, all these places. Look at that. You see that? With the feather? Yeah. So we ain't just talking about tans or dark hair. There was actually so-called black people in Germany for a very, very long time. There was actually indigenous Germans there. Look at this. Sardinia. We already know the flag of Sardinia. The emblem. All right. Algarbia, it says here. These are families. All right. As you guys can see. And we're going to many, many different family crest books, very old books, a Wappam book, as they call them over there. All right. A lot of different ones, as you guys can see. All right. Yeah, break the cognitive dissonance. Yeah. You know, use your eyes. Use your eyes. All right. I'm trying to make a point here, you know, when we're talking about Black Dutch, so-called Black Dutch. Don't assume it just means they're talking about Africans mixed with some Dutch people or Germans. That's not exactly what it means. All right, so again, this is just part one. Go to part two, European coat of arms. All right, black noble families. Even has an image of Prester John. What's it saying here? Let's see what we're saying here.
Dusseldorf. All right, and again, that's Konrad Grunenberg Wappenbook. All right, so I found this image right here, as you can see. Look at that. All right. See that? I was looking for, because it told me that I would find Prester John on page 32 or number 32. Prester John, look at this. King David, is this Prester John?
So yeah, there's literally an image of Prester John on one of the family crests, as you guys can see. King of Kings, he got rubies and everything on his throne. All right, let's see if we're gonna keep going. Okay, do you guys see that? All right, again, black noble families, European coat of arms. A lot of this is mostly in German area, Austria. Okay, check it out. You see, use your eyes. All right. Yeah. So before we get into the information, just to get a perspective, right, when we're talking about so-called Black Dutch, and they're trying to figure out what is a Black Dutch. They're searching for the origin of the so-called Black Dutch. Well, just to remind everybody, there is so-called Black Europeans. It's not just from African admixture. Okay. I mean, I got hours of this, guys. Hours of family crest of Black noble families. Hours. And people are still talking about Pan-Africanism. And some people still talking about that, oh, I can't be no Black European. Who is they? Why are they searching? Because it's in a lot of people's genealogical stories, including a lot of so-called white people. So because we grew up thinking that all Black folks came out of Africa and all so-called white people came from Europe, we have a misconception of when we hear these family stories. That's what I'm trying to help you break that spell, and also to help with some cognitive dissonance people carry. It's having a hard time letting go. All right. Again, I can go hours here. We're just looking at so many crests. All right. Yeah, Black Europeans were real. There's a big part of history that they hid. All right, Dr. Hijack, we're going to go to part 3. Again, I have 5 parts of this. All right, 5 parts of this. Let's see what we're saying over here.
So real quick, we're going to get into the books right away. We're going to get into this book right here, the Ortenburger Wappen book. All right, so the Wappen is the coat of arms, not just weapon, as somebody told me. It literally means coat of arms, book, or the coat of arms book of the Ortenburger coat of arms book. This is written between 1466 and 1473, before Columbus, right? Now, before I read from that book, let's get a little background of what this book means. It says here, the Ortenburg noble family. Because the Bavarian counts of Ortenburg, formerly Ortenburg, are a dynasty with origins in Rhine, Franconia, and Carinthia. The Ortenburgers are a side branch of the Sponheimer dynasty, who held the ducal dignity of Carinthia from 1122 to 1269, nominally until 1279. The Ortenburgers ruled the lower Bavarian imperial county of Ortenburg from 1134 to 1805, an imperial territory, and therefore belonged to the high nobility. Now, I want to read this as well. We're going to get the full description, right? This is in Dutch or German. Right here, the description. We're going to grab it, and we're going to go to the translator. All right, copy. Go to Google Translate or Duck Translator. All right. So, detected German, it says the Ortenburg coat of arms book was probably created between 1466 and 1473 in Bavaria. It was written and illuminated by various hands. Included are more than 500 mostly colored pen drawings of coat of arms of princes, nobles, and high spiritual dignitaries in the German Empire, as well as standard bearers with quaternions, groups of 4 of the same rank. Okay, again, doesn't say anything about this having representations of any, right, slaves or captives or Moorish captives, as some of you guys were saying in the comments.
All right, so you guys understand, this is a German nobles and princes, not Africans, not slaves, okay? Just want to emphasize that. That's why I'm showing this right now. All right, let's go take us some of the images. So this is, again, images that we're pulling out of here. Hold on, let's go to the book. All right, as you guys can see.
In this book is this lady right here. Very interesting image, not just because it's a person of color, dark complexion, but because it's a woman. What appears to me a woman, I would say it's a woman,
and she's wearing the Vatican Pope or Bishop hat, or some might say the Dogon fish head, right? That's a whole different topic. Videos we're gonna get into eventually.
All right, so as you guys can see, all right, and there's a lot more. Let's keep going in this book real quick. With the Dracan, yeah. Again, German nobles, right, and princes, not Africans. A book from the 1300s. Book from the 1300s. All right. And even light-skinned ones too, represented. Wow. Yeah. Uh-huh. So swarty. Oh, all right. And you know, we got part 4. As you guys can see, it says the Black Roman, Bavarian, and Council of Constance nobles. The Council of Constance. Come on now. All right. Do you see? Hold on. All right. Any questions? All right. I mean, I can show you so many. Again, there's 5 parts of this, and I'm not done with this series, guys. I'm gonna return to this. You know, there's so many whatchamacallit, Family Crest books, but they're in different languages. You gotta understand the lingo, and you'll be able to find them. You know, they hide them really well. You gotta know how to look. All right. But they're in there. And I just want to show you when we're talking about black Dutch, don't assume it's just black hair. Don't assume it's just mixture with an Iberian, as they're saying, because they mixed with the Spanish. That's not the only way people became dark in Germany. There was actually indigenous black Germans, and there was indigenous people in Holland as well that were dark complexion all over Europe. All over Europe. Right? And this is part 5. The Prussian, Dutch, Bavarian, Saxon, Austrian, American Indians too. Uh-oh. Hey, make sure to check out the whole playlist. I even got the Sorting Napoleon video in there somehow. All right. Nations of the world, Sephardic Dutch, huh? Make sure to check out the Origin of the Nations of the World, where we talk about a lot of the Sephardic and Moorish Jews, how they ended up in Holland and Germany, so you can understand. All right. Let's see what we got here. Again, the Moors who ruled Europe, all right? We're talking about the Habsburgs, right? The Holy Roman Empire. This is right here. Just like Charles V was a swarthy man. Oh, we got the info. And they took my video down I had on Charles V being swarthy. I can't even find it in my computer. It's crazy. It's like it never existed. I can't find it nowhere on YouTube, but we're gonna redo it. Yeah, Charles V was the so-called swarthy man, Holy Roman Empire. Oh, more family crest. It's just all over the place. So-called black Europeans. Yeah, so-called black Europeans. You gotta dodge your own hijacks. You gotta break the spells. All right. Yeah, all over Asia, all over Europe. Yeah. European nobility would not put slaves on their crest. Oh, he knows to symbolize anything, especially not embellish them with gold jewelry and fine linens. All right. All right. all these Pan-Africans, man, you gotta let go. You gotta learn to let go eventually. Utsbalter, all right? So-called Black Dutch. Look, Switzerland, Library of Switzerland, all right? What's going on? All history they didn't teach you. That's why you're so confused. That's why they're still searching for the so-called Black Dutch. They're like so confused. Who are these people? Who are these people? Who's the Melungeons? Who are all these people? Yeah, you guys get it? With all the images, is this helping? All right. Okay. Let me see. Let's go to a video real quick. Let's see. Hold on. Bear with me, guys. Thank you. Right.
Again, the Blue Hill Avenue, famous, you know, if you know about Blue Hill Avenue, you know, that's the hood. And so again, where they end up, all these Sephardis, now these same Sephardic Jews, you know, we got the Alhambra decree, or the expulsion of the Jews from Spain and Portugal and their territories in 1492. All right, and because of that, a lot of those Sephardic Jews in the Netherlands, a lot of these Moors, as it says here, as a result of the Alhambra decree of 1492 and the Holy Office of the Inquisition, many Sephardim, Spanish and Portuguese Jews, remember, people of color, left the Iberian Peninsula at the end of the 15th century and throughout the 16th century in search of religious freedom. Some migrated to the newly independent Dutch provinces, which welcomed the Sephardic Jews. Many of the Jews who left for the Dutch provinces were crypto Jews, persons who had converted to Catholicism but continued to practice Judaism in secret. After they had settled in the safety of the Netherlands, many of them returned fully to practice of the Jewish religion. Many Jewish refugees.
All right, so again, remember, we've gone over this entirely and with different sources, not just Wikipedia as we're showing here. This is just general, so we can, before we get into the book, I'm going to read to you guys. All right. Again, Sephardic Jews, melanated people. We've gone over the primary sources. It was a general consensus in the 1500s, 1600s that the Sephardic Jews were of dark complexion. Portuguese Jews were known as very dark skinned people. And a lot of these people, not just them, but the Moors as well, when they were kicked out, as we just read the decree, they ended up in Holland. Amsterdam literally became their new Jerusalem. That's where they went. They were accepted there. The Catholics weren't there yet. And they set up shop. They became the so-called Dutch, the Dutch Protestant merchants, the Dutch West India and East India Company. Yeah, these are them.
Refugees came from Portugal. All right, Portuguese Jews were very dark skinned, remember? Where Spanish Jews had fled after the Spanish Inquisition. All right, so a lot of them were Spanish though, but they were very still swarthy. Had been introduced in Spain in 1478, followed by the expulsions of the Jews from Spain in 1492. In 1497, the Portuguese forcibly converted all Jews in Portugal, including many who had returned to Judaism after fleeing Spain and its Inquisition. Following the establishment in 1536 of the Portuguese Inquisition, descendants of Jews who had converted to Catholicism dating back to a forced conversion in Spain in 1391 through the Portuguese forced conversion were looked upon with great suspicion. In search for greater religious and economic freedoms, many crypto Jews left Portugal for places with more lenient religious legislation and opportunities where their unique skill set could thrive. Many left for Brazil, where Europeans were Portuguese speaking, and France. A couple of decades later, groups of crypto Jews started reaching the Dutch Republic. All right, so look where they ended up, some of the places. All right, we're going to focus on a couple. So migration to Amsterdam. Amsterdam became one of the most favored destinations in the Netherlands for Sephardic Jews. All right, Amsterdam. They became Dutch there because many of these refugees were traders. All right, remember all the way back in my trader Sephardi Sumerian video how they were in charge of the trade, the Silk Roads and all that, the commerce. Amsterdam benefited greatly from their arrival because these people brought the trade with them. However, the reason to settle in Amsterdam was not merely voluntarily. Many crypto Jews or Marranos, Marranos, had been refused admission in trading centers like Middelburg and Haarlem. And because that ended up in Amsterdam, under the influence of Sephardic Jews, Amsterdam grew rapidly. Many Jews supported the House of Orange and were in return protected by the standholder. All right, so real quick, just from this Wikipedia article, says history of the Jews in the Netherlands, right? Same place, Holland, all right? Now the Netherlands. Now I want to go to this part right here. It says the area now known as the Netherlands was once part of the Spanish Empire, right? Did you know that? It was part of the Spanish Empire. But in the 1581, the northern Dutch provinces declared independence. A principal motive was the wish to practice Protestant Christianity, all right? Protestant, all right? Who's also Protestants? Known Protestants. All right, now we're getting into Protestantism, right? We're talking about Jews, but now we're gonna get into a territory where Protestant was accepted. Remember the Huguenots, right? Remember the Huguenots were Protestants, so-called Protestants, right? And remember the Huguenots, before they were Protestant, they were Sephardic Jews and Moorish Muslims, all right?
So we recently went over the whole Huguenot history. We did a whole live breaking it down, added some more sources. Again, what happened with the Huguenots as well? They ended up in Holland as well. Why? Because that's where the main market for the merchants was. That's where the Sephardic Jews and the Moors were that had set up shop. And the Huguenots, they were family, they were king, they were the same people, Protestant. They went up there as well. So let's not forget that. And that's why we're saying, who are these so-called Black Dutch?
So you see now, all right, this is gonna all link up. Then forbidding under Spanish rule. So Protestant was forbidding in Spain and Portugal. Religious tolerance was effectively an important constitutional element of the newly independent state. This inevitably attracted the attention of Jews who were religiously oppressed in different parts of the world. In pursuit of religious freedoms, many Jews migrated to the Netherlands, where they flourished. They flourished there. The newly independent and tolerant Dutch provinces provided more favorable conditions for observant Jews to establish a community and to practice their religion openly. The rabbi of the Portuguese-Spanish synagogue in Amsterdam, still in use today, was Abraham Cohen Pimentel. The services are still held in the Portuguese language. The Portuguese Jews migrated most notably to the city of Amsterdam. As they became established, they collectively brought new trading expertise, and connections, a global network to the city. They also brought navigation knowledge, Moors, right? And techniques from Portugal. From who? Where did they learn all that from? Which enabled the Netherlands to start competing in overseas trade with the Spanish and Portuguese colonies, all right? So even though we're in Wikipedia, this is very important what they just told you right there, all right? Who are these Dutch? Who are these pirates?
Yeah, we've also proven all this with real academic sources. Again, this is just a review we're doing right now until we get to a book I'm going to read today, just so you can understand that all these people are included in the so-called Black Dutch eventually during colonial times, including the Huguenots. And a lot of these people were coming in not only from Germany or the Netherlands, Holland, but through Ireland, through England, Scotland. So they were coming as Irish as well. But, they were being called Black Dutch too. Many, uh, many Black Irish and Black Dutch were the same people, ethnically.
Who established the West Indian Company? All right, so now I'm in this article. Right here is Sephardic Immigration into the Dutch Republic, 1595 to 1672 by Jonathan Israel. The source is Studia Rosentaliana, volume 23, from 1989, pages 45 to 53. All right, this is a very scholarly, peer-reviewed book. Again, Sephardic Immigration into the Dutch Republic by Jonathan Israel. But before outlining the factors behind and the phases of Sephardic immigration into the Dutch Republic, it is necessary to make the general point that the rise of Dutch Sephardic Jewry was based on its functions in international commerce, and that the Dutch Republic during the 17th century was the world's foremost trading entry port. All right, so you see why the Sephardics were kind of like attracted to that area, right? Because they were already kind of in that business of trading and being merchants, right? So that was a big commercial area, international commerce port right there. And, you know, that's why they were heading over there. From the 1590s down to the beginning of the 18th century, the Dutch Republic exerted the greater influence over the mechanisms of world trade than any state or nation had previously had. This fact is fundamental to understanding the beginnings and subsequent growth of Dutch Sephardic Jewry. All right, they were going over there for a main reason. For Sephardic immigrants were allowed to settle in those Dutch cities which accepted them. Above all, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and Middelburg, essentially because they were regarded as economically useful, as bringing expertise and connections in spheres of commerce which were not yet established in the Dutch entrepot, but which were seen as important for its further expansion. The essential economic base on which the demographic, social, and cultural development of Dutch Sephardic Jewry rested was in fact quite narrowly defined. It consisted overwhelmingly of a small group of long-distance trades and restricted batch of mostly colonial commodities, of which sugar, spices, bullion, diamonds, and tobacco were the most important. These were the strands of commerce in which Sephardic emigres of Portuguese background were firmly encompassed owing to their role while living in Portugal as forced Christian converts during the 16th century in Portugal's long-distance traffic with Brazil, West Africa, and India. It is for these reasons that the onset of Sephardic immigration into the United Provinces from around 1595, and thus the origins of modern Dutch Jewry as a whole, are intimately and inseparably linked to the beginnings of Dutch primacy in long-distance rich trades during the 1590s. All right, so again, what they're trying to let you know is that at the same time as these Sephardic Jews are arriving in Holland, is when you can see the Dutch rise on these rich trades, as they're saying here. The fact that several quite substantial Sephardic merchants settled in Amsterdam with their wives and children during the mid-1590s before the arrival of the first group of immigrants who came direct from the sea from Portugal in 1597 seems to me to deserve a certain amount of emphasis. Hitherto, scholars have tended to emphasize the role of Portuguese New Christian immigrants fleeing from the Inquisition, migrating more or less directly from Portugal, and to de-emphasize the role of those Sephardic immigrants who arrived in Holland during the first quarter of a century or so from Germany, Italy, France, and Brazil. All right, so you see what they're telling you here, that these Sephardic Jews from Portugal or Spain, people of color, right? Remember, very dark Jews, were actually, some of them had settled in Germany, Italy, France, and Brazil before that, before they got to Holland. The stream of immigration from Portugal was, of course, the largest and demographically the most important component in the making of Dutch Sephardic Jewry, but it was not they who established Sephardic life on firm foundation in Holland, and it is arguable that also after 1597, the continuing stream of immigration from Antwerp, Germany, France, Brazil continued to play a disproportionately important formative role. So there were Sephardic Jews coming from all these places, even from Brazil. They were already in Brazil by then. They were getting kicked out of Brazil. They had to come back. Yeah, we're going to read about that. Economic factors, in other words, were paramount in shaping the early phases of Sephardic settlement in the Dutch Republic, and this immigration came from several different directions simultaneously. They started gathering up. You hear what they're telling you? The Sephardic Jews started gathering up in Holland and the Netherlands, becoming Dutch. And this is the book, The Jews and Moors in Spain, by Rabbi Jos Crosskop. All right, with what we're talking about today, it says many of the Portuguese Jews settled and became prosperous in the Indies. All right, that's in the Americas. All right, Portuguese Jews, have Sephardic Jews, right, people of color in southern France. All right, in southern France. All right, and from there they became known as Huguenots eventually, and in Hamburg. Others settled in the Netherlands, all right, in Holland, and became especially prosperous in Holland, very prosperous in Holland, all right. From Holland, large numbers of the descendants of the Portuguese and Spanish exiles entered England through the intercession of Manasseh ben Israel, all right. So from Holland, they would eventually reach England, all right. So remember now, Eventually, these people go from England to America. Now we forget about the whole trajectory. We just call them English or English Jews, right? But then there's a whole history behind these English Jews, right? They were in Holland, and then before that, they were in Portugal. They were Sephardic Marranos, Moors, right? And they were exposed. They had a whole history before they even got to the Americas, right? So this is what I'm trying to show you guys. So with the help of Manasseh ben Israel and Oliver Cromwell from England and from the Indies and from Italy, they entered the United States. Right? Since we already understand a little bit of the expulsion of the Jews and the Moors from Spain and Portugal, this book is going to correlate something, you know, that I read before. It says History of the Conquest of Spain by the Arab Moors, with a sketch of civilization which they achieved and imparted to Europe, by Henry Copy. So it's a very good book. We're just going to go to one part of the book. It's from 1892, printed in Boston. So I'm on page 445 of this book, and it starts, and over here it's talking about Christopher Columbus, what his name means, the Christ bearer. He brought the Christ, all right? He brought only evil to the Aborigines, and like an Inquisition, he thought that, you know, the Moorish civilization was only good. That was the only good. So it says here that his vessel was fitted out in that little port of Palos, which had lately been a Moorish port. Palos was a Moorish port. That's where he's coming from, Columbus, all right? His sailors were, many of them, men with Moorish blood in their veins, all right? His men, every people on the ship were Moors. It has been asserted that when the Moors were driven out, thousands took refuge in south of France. Thousands went to the south of France, all right? Who afterwards, abhorring the Roman Catholic persecution, became Huguenots. They became what? Huguenots. Who? Moors. Became what? Huguenots. Sephardic Jews and Morisco, crypto Moors, became what? Huguenots in the south of France, and that of these many emigrated at a later date to South Carolina. Be that as it may, the Spaniards had found for the world a virgin land in which to introduce Spanish errors and especially Spanish bigotry, and the great tide rushed in from Protestant Europe to occupy Protestant Europe. Protestants, all right? So again, these same Moors and Jews, you know, they eventually became Huguenots. It says here, you know, so you can understand where we're getting all this information, this correlation from. If we know that Sephardic peoples and Moors of Spain were people of color, you know, it makes sense, you know, Moorish blood. Huguenot merchants in the Protestant International in the 17th century. Same time, during the same time. The Protestant International by J.B. Bosher, the William and Mary Quarterly, Volume 52, Number 1, from January 1995, pages 77 to 102. Again, Huguenot merchants and the Protestant International. Remember, a lot of these Sephardic Jews were Protestants. They were just practicing that in secret, but they were secret Jews and Moors, cryptos. The Reformation of the 16th century created religious conflict in France that lasted for 2 centuries, and in some respects even longer. In the 17th century phase of this conflict, church and state made efforts to destroy the Calvinist heresy that had taken root in the kingdom. A vigorous Roman Catholic resurgence, the Counter-Reformation, gave these efforts great force. Consequently, several waves of emigration brought Huguenots to Protestant parts of Europe. The word refugee, again, the word refugee, just like the Sephardic Jews were being called refugees, was invented to describe them. Refugee was invented for the Huguenots. Some of them found their way to the English colonies of North America, particularly after the revocation of the Edict of Nantes in 1685. By then, large communities of French-speaking Protestant refugees had gathered in the Dutch Republic. All right, they already were in the Dutch Republic. Why? And who was also there? Sephardic Jews, right? The Dutch. They brought prosperity during the same time, these Jews. And though the Huguenots were also going there, Huguenots possibly ex-Sephardic Jews, ex-Muslim Moors. So they're just meeting up with their ancestors, their cousins, their families that were already in Dutch there as Sephardic Jews. The first French church in London was established in 1550. The refugees who left France in the generations that settled in America were not only joining the Protestant colonies of English North America, but were also joining a cosmopolitan diaspora, a Protestant international, a diaspora, just like the Sephardic Jews and Moors. All right, so I hope you guys following along.
so far, see the similarities within these people. We know that the Sephardi Jews, a lot of them ended up and were very successful in their commerce and business in Holland and the Dutch Republic, which also happened to be one of the places where the Huguenots were able to go after they were refugees and become very successful too. As it says here from the Brigham Young University, Le Grand Arche des Fugitives, Huguenots in the Dutch Republic after 1685 by Michael Joseph Walker from the Brigham Young University, Provo. And right here, page 14 of this book, article says resettlement in the Netherlands was somewhat more successful for the Huguenots than in the British Isles. In both locations were the most receptive as compared to anywhere else because of cultural and linguistic structures provided by the pre-existing Walloon churches. The greater number of Huguenots settled in the Dutch Republic as opposed to any other single place. In the Netherlands, the Huguenots retained their separate culture and identity for the longest time of any of the areas of resettlement, arguably into the 19th century. However, they also managed to be integrated into Dutch society. The Huguenots were attractive to the Dutch because of their skills importing in the Dutch economy. Doesn't that sound like how they were also allowing the Sephardic Jews to settle in Amsterdam and all these places because they were going to be so important to the economy as well? And also their Reformed religion, which matched so well the religion of the Dutch Reformed Church. Indeed, the Dutch communities to which the Huguenots fled greatly benefited from the additional talent, wealth, and devotion these refugees brought and generated refugees, just like Sephardic Jews. Alice Clare Carter suggests that the Dutch readily accepted and invited skilled, talented, or wealthy foreigners. She argues that while other countries were rejecting religious diversity, the Netherlands, especially Amsterdam, embraced the skilled individuals who helped create the Dutch Golden Age, regardless of religious confession. However, the religious confession of the Huguenots happened to match very closely the sentiments of the Dutch Reformed Church, making them even more attractive than other sorts of refugees. Amsterdam was a city where toleration flourished. Remember that Amsterdam, many Sephardic Jews were prospering there and had control of the commerce in Amsterdam. And also, so these Huguenots, if they wanted to do business, they had to do business with the Jews, basically their own people from ancient times in Spain and Portugal, and also provided a ready market for their Huguenot refugee industrial skills. The Huguenots enriched the communities where they made new homes. Their commitments to the new communities left a lasting cultural impact where they settled. In fact, the most skilled Huguenots migrated to the Netherlands because the Dutch Republic found quick use for their skills. Various cities even competed with each other in the Republic to attract the most skilled refugees. William III of Orange also encouraged the towns to support the Huguenots as part of his effort to gain political favor amongst Protestants around the Republic and England and to combat the policies of his political opponent Louis XIV. Furthermore, the states of Holland offered generous funds which also served as propaganda against France and emboldened the Dutch to help Huguenot refugees. The Dutch army also benefited from the Huguenot exodus from France, as Louis XIV had previously employed Huguenots as soldiers and officers. All right, so that was just a little quick thing. Just wanted you to see that, yeah, they were also Huguenots, just like Sephardic Jews became very prosperous and were settling in Holland and becoming Dutch citizens, all right, blending in. All right, just want to show an example of one of these Sephardic Jews that ended up in Holland and became very popular there in history, and as a Dutch Jew. His name is Benedict Spinoza. We're in the Britannica.com website encyclopedia. It says Benedict Spinoza, Hebrew forename Baruch, Latin forename Benedictus, Portuguese Bento de Spinoza. Born November 24, 1632 in Amsterdam, died February 21, 1677, The Hague. Dutch Jewish philosopher. All right, again, Dutch Jewish philosopher, one of the foremost exponents of 17th century rationalism and one of the early and seminal figures of the Enlightenment. His masterwork is the treatise Ethics from 1677. So he's a Dutch Jewish, all right? So that kind of like leaves you like, so what does that mean, So we picture a certain type of Jew, right? Every time we grow up hearing like, oh, German Jew, Dutch Jew, all right? But what is he, all right? It says early life and career. Spinoza's Portuguese parents. All right, Portuguese, the Jews of Portuguese, we already know what complexion they were, right? Very swarthy, very dark, so-called black. were among many Jews who were forcibly converted to Christianity. His parents, but continued to practice Judaism in secret. See Marranos. All right, so they were Marranos. I remember Marranos. All right, we went over Marranos in many of my videos, the information before. After being arrested, tortured, and condemned by the Inquisition in Portugal, they escaped to Amsterdam, where Spinoza's father, Michael, became an important merchant. He became a merchant. Remember, they're heavily involved in the merchant business, all right, and trade. These Jews, all right, since ancient times, and eventually served as one of the directors of the city's synagogue. Spinoza's mother, Hannah, died in 1638, shortly before his birthday. All right, so they were Marranos, again, Marrano, British Encyclopedia in Spanish history, a Jew who converted to Christian faith to escape persecution, but who continued to practice Judaism secretly. Marranos, all right, Marranos. And we already know that these Jews were so-called black. All right, so Benedict, how can you prove that, Kurimeo? Because they got this fake picture of him here like they always do. All right, I'm going to show you something right here. All right, this is in archive.org. It says this is Benedict Spinoza, His Life, Correspondence, and Ethics by Robert Willis. This is the publication date in 1870. All right, this is the title right here, Benedict Spinoza again, by Robert Willis, MD, 1870. So we're going to go to page 71 in this book, and we're going to zoom in. And it says here, his personal appearance. All right, talking about Spinoza's personal appearance. It says in Calero's day, there were many persons still living at The Hague who had been well acquainted with Spinoza. They spoke of him as a man of middling height and slenderly built. His features were regular, his forehead broad and high, his eyes dark, large, and lustrous, his eyebrows black and bushy, his hair of the same hue, long and curly hair, and his complexion swarthy, black, so-called black, swart, black. His complexion is so-called black. All right, Benedict Spinoza, this famous Dutch Jew, so-called Dutch Jew, is a Sephardic Jew. His parents were Portuguese. They were Iberian Moorish Jews, right? Moorish Jews. The whole physiognomy unmistakably proclaiming descent from the Jews of the southern peninsula. He looked just like them. Remember that the Jews from the southern peninsula were people of color, so-called very dark. They were describing them earlier, right? Very dark. So his personal appearance, complexion, swarthy. Show me that he was light-skinned. Prove that he was pale-skinned. All right? We already know. Corroborate, put all the information together, use your logic. All right? All this info. Who were these Dutch Jews and what role did they play?
Yeah, again, so, Huguenots and Jews ending up in Holland, all right, at the same time, being basically oppressed the same way. They had to flee, they had to practice their religion in secret, and then they had to fight for their freedom and religion, just like, so there's a common thing here going on with the same people. Now, again, we're just going to go over the same information. I know this is Wikipedia, but just to get it in your head, the history of the Jews in Amsterdam. Again, Amsterdam has historically been the center of Dutch Jewish community and has had continuing Jewish community for the last 370 years. Amsterdam is also known under the name Mokum, given to the city by its Jewish inhabitants. Mokum is Yiddish for town, all right? So they're talking about what kind of Jews, all right? So it says here, Marrano and Sephardic Jews. Permanent Jewish life in Amsterdam began with the arrival. It began with what? The arrival of pockets of who? Marrano and Sephardic Jews. It wasn't Ashkenazi Jews. It was Marrano and Sephardic Jews first. At the end of the 16th and beginning of the 17th century, their first chief rabbi was Rabbi Udi Levi. Many Sephardic Jews from the Iberian Peninsula had been expelled from Spain in 1492 after the fall of Muslim Granada. Those that moved to Portugal were forced to leave in 1497, where they were given the choice between conversion or to Catholicism or death penalty on the grounds of heresy. From 1497, others remained in the Iberian Peninsula practicing Judaism secretly in their homes. The newly independent Dutch provinces provided an ideal opportunity for these crypto-Jews to re-establish themselves and practice their religion openly, and they migrated most notably to Amsterdam. Now remember, this was an open Protestant place.
Collectively, they brought in economic growth and influence to the city as they established an international trading hub in Amsterdam during the 17th century. All right, they established what? An international trading global network. And the hub was where? In Amsterdam. Dutch. Who was over there? Jews and Huguenots. During the 17th century, the so-called Dutch Golden Age, they helped with the Dutch Golden Age. Perhaps the most notable example of Sephardic Jews in Amsterdam are the Kurimeo family, named Geronimo Nunez da Costa, alias Moses Curio. All right, so the Costa, we already know that the Costas, we got some Irish da Costas who were actually Jewish. We got that in one of my videos, and they were listed as mulattoes in the census. All right, Irish mulattoes, Jews. Son of Jacob Curiel. All right, so these are Sephardic Jews, basically. In 1593, Marrano Jews arrived in Amsterdam after having been refused admission to Middelburg and Haarlem. These Jews of converso descent were important merchants. They were what? Merchants and persons of great ability. Their expertise, that can be stated, contributed materially to the prosperity of the Netherlands. All right, they became strenuous supporters of the contender House of Orange and were in return protected by the stadtholder. At this time, commerce in Holland was increasing. A period of development had arrived, particularly for Amsterdam. So all this is increasing while the Jews and Huguenots are arriving, right? To which Jews had carried their goods and from which they maintained their relations with foreign lands. Quite new for the Netherlands, they had also held connections with the Levant, Morocco, and the Caribbean allies. Morocco. All right, who? Sephardic Jews and their allies in Morocco, making Netherlands prosperous. It says here, by chance for choice, Jews in New Amsterdam, 1654. So it's going to tell us a little bit about, New Amsterdam. That's New York, right? And already we're going to read Huguenots were already kind of there, settling in. Yeah, Dutch Huguenots, French Huguenots, yep, they were already there. But in around these 60s, 50s, the Jews were getting there. So it says that in late summer 1654, 2 ships anchored in New Amsterdam. Roadstead 1, that's New York, right, arrived from Amsterdam. So one of them came from Amsterdam on or about August 22nd. The other, a Dutch vessel named Saint Catherine, is often referred to as the French warship Saint Catherine of Saint Charles, yet only the name Saint Catherine appears in original records. Having entered a few days before September 7th from the West Indies. We actually got the same ship leaving. We got the story of them, what happened, why they had to leave from the West.
All right, so I'm gonna stop it there. That's a video I did on the Sephardic Jews, the founding of New York, New Amsterdam. So make sure to check that out. That's in the Origin of the Nations series. But I just wanted to show the link of like the Germany and the Netherlands before people started coming to the Americas to colonize, who was really coming from these places that would be considered so-called Black Dutch. And many of these people we just showed you are the same people that they eventually will be called Black Dutch. Not just the Sephardic and Moorish people, but the original indigenous people that were coming from these areas. All right. We know German Palatines, a lot of those included Sephardic Jews and Moors, the Prussian area, the Prussians, and all these people were being called Black Dutch. The Hessian from Hessia, the Hessian soldiers, what they're calling the Black Hessians, and they'll try to say these were slaves that joined the army, but these were actual Black Germans. All right, we're gonna talk about that in this book we got coming. So remember everything we just went over when we're about to read this other book here. Let me see if we can get it going. All right. So first we're gonna hear a recording from Ancestry.com, I believe, Ancestry Findings. They're talking about the Black Dutch. So we gotta touch the hijack a little bit with the the generalized info about where so-called Black people come from and what Europeans were supposed to look like. So that's why I showed before that again. There was many what you call Negro Dutch from Holland and Black Germans. They would call Dutch, the Dutch also. Both these people are being grouped in as Black Dutch, right?
So I just want to play this video right here real quick. This is from ancestralfindings.com. This is fair use. Again, we're just doing this for education, commentary, and so we can learn and correct our history. all the lies you guys told us. Yeah, that's what we're doing. All right, so I'm gonna play this real quick.
Welcome to the AncestralFindings.com podcast, episode number 8. Were you told you have Black Dutch ancestry, but don't know what it means? It means a lot of different things. Here is what you need to know about these people. The term Black Dutch is something you may encounter in your genealogy research, or maybe you've heard it mentioned in your family as being part of your ancestry. But what does it mean exactly? Who were the Black Dutch? If you're just getting started on your genealogy adventure, you may not know. This is the explanation you need. I found it very interesting to learn that the Black Dutch were not one particular race. That is the most important thing to remember. It is a term that is used in historical documents to refer to several different groups. Knowing your ancestral origin,
Several different groups, all right? It's not just one thing. So knowing your genealogy is what the guy's trying to emphasize here.
and some of your family history will help you put the term Black Dutch in context with your own family. The most common designation of Black Dutch refers to Dutch immigrants to New York who had swarthier complexions than most other Dutch. The darker
Swarthier complexions.
complexions were usually due to intermarriage or out-of-wedlock births with Spanish soldiers during the Spanish occupation of the Netherlands. Many of these so-called Black Dutch are still in New York today.
All right, so I just want to stop it there. So again, we just went over the info. There was already swarthy people there. We saw the black nobles. It's not just from Spanish mixture, all right? And it's not just soldiers. It's also Sephardic and Moorish people going there as merchants, all right?
While other families migrated south and west to other states. DNA studies have shown that these people are of mainly European descent, with little, if any, African or Native American DNA in them.
Uh-oh.
Sephardic Jewish merchants came to the
All right, with little African.
Netherlands from Spain and Portugal in the 15th century after being expelled from those nations. Some of them were admitted to England during Oliver Cromwell's occupation of it in the 17th century during the English Civil War. Many of these eventually came to the American colonies and settled in New England and in the South.
So he's talking about the Protestants, the merchants, the cryptos. That's what he's literally talking about right now. Because Oliver Cromwell was a Protestant as well, so that's why he allowed some of them to settle during his time. We just went over the whole info there. He's talking about the whole background, but they always leave out, the details. We're just talking about Protestant, generalizing. You don't understand who these people are. Protestants just religion or a following. It's not a nation. You get what I'm saying? So you gotta understand who these people are practicing this faith and why. So he's telling you these people settled in New England, all right? Same people we just showed, all right? Don't get lost.
The Sephardic Jewish immigrants often mixed with free or enslaved Africans and bore children with them.
All right, Dash the hijack, he said Sephardic Jews, they mixed with African slaves because that's how they're trying to turn you so-called black. That's why they're trying to explain that these people were swarthy. But we know Sephardic Jews were so-called black too. So Dash the hijack, and what Africans? Prove they're Africans. You mean an Indian, free-colored person?
Sometimes the men stayed with their mixed race families, especially if the woman was free, while other times they abandoned them for Jewish wives. The descendants of the Sephardic Jewish immigrants and the Africans in America with whom they bore children were also historically referred to as Black Dutch. Some Native Americans...
So, Sephardic Jews mixing with Africans in America are the Black Dutch? Did you hear him? What Africans? We know that's not a true history. So who are they really mixing with, guys?
Particularly the Cherokees of the Carolinas identified themselves as Black Dutch in order to avoid being sent west to reservations. Giving themselves this designation also allowed them to buy and own land in the East, something that was only permitted to those of European descent at the time. These natives denied their ancestry, sometimes for generations,
Wow.
because they were concerned their land would be taken from them and they would be sent west.
Uh-oh.
Today, though, most natives who identified as Black Dutch have become open about their ancestry. If you have a native in your family who identified as Black Dutch in order to stay in the East and buy land, you will probably know it through family records and strong oral tradition. The term Dutch has long been used for German immigrants, as Germans called themselves the Deutsche people.
Deutsch, yep.
This easily anglicized into Dutch, and both German and Dutch immigrants became known by the same designation. The Pennsylvania Dutch are the descendants of German immigrants, and many groups of them, particularly the Amish, still speak various versions of German today. Like the dark-skinned immigrants from the Netherlands, who settled in New York, German immigrants to Pennsylvania, and up
Dark-skinned immigrants from the Netherlands, right, who settled in New York. He just told you. We're not talking about Africans.
areas were also referred to as Black Dutch if they had darker than usual complexions. The surnames of these Black Dutch have remained decidedly German even to the present day, making it easier to identify a Black Dutch ancestor who was really a German immigrant than possibly for any other group of people referred to as Black Dutch. As many northern families who were referred to as Black Dutch immigrated south, the original meaning of the term became lost through the generations. Many southern people today claim to have Black Dutch ancestry, usually believing they have an ancestor who bore children with a Native American. In most cases, this is incorrect.
Ooh.
However, it was not uncommon for people in the South to have children with Africans during the 18th and 19th centuries.
So you guys hear the hijack? So he's like, they didn't probably mix with Native Americans, but they did mix with Africans. Who's their Africans, huh? We know that's a false history. So a lot of these people were mixing with American Indians, we're gonna see, but also they were just mixing with themselves, and they just were melanated folks. They didn't have to mix with no so-called African to become so-called black, because that's how they're trying to explain why they were known as Black Dutch. It's all conjectures, guys. It's not real history. Once you start doing the real genealogy, you see who these people are. All right? Can't be lazy. We got to put in the work.
And these mixed-race families gradually integrated into their communities. Most of the southern Black Dutch do not have German or Dutch ancestry at all, but are of English or Irish descent, with maybe some African mixed in.
Maybe.
Since Black Dutch is an American term, you will be doing all of your research in American records. It was a common term in legal and personal documents from the 1600s through the early 1900s in this country.
Legal term.
If you come across it in your research, or if you've been told you have Black Dutch ancestry, the easiest thing to do is to get a DNA test.
We're going to do our genealogy. We ain't doing DNA tests anymore.
It will tell you where your ancestors came from in the past several hundred years, and this will allow you to narrow down the ethnicity of your own particular brand of Black Dutch. Knowing this will make following the paper trail to your original Black Dutch ancestor easier. You can follow the line of ethnicity back through census records, court records, wills, church records, and even old newspaper records.
So who are the Black Dutch, right? The elusive Black Dutch of the South.
All right, so before we continue from that, all right, let's go. Somebody just reminded me I was going to show this. Again, a lot of people are new, guys, so bear with me if you already know this. This is written by Benjamin Franklin himself, Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, Peopling of Countries, etc., by Benjamin Franklin. 1755, all right, 1755. We go to page 10. He's talking about the problem with the German immigration that's going on in his time, or that he's having. He's having a problem with it. Okay, he's Palatine, from the Palatine region, where many Sephardic and Moorish people settled. But not only that, there was already many so-called black, indigenous, local people there that were there from ancient times. I just showed you the coat of arms from this region. A lot of people coming out of this region that are so-called black. Now he's saying, why are you going to Germanize us instead of us Anglifying them? They can't even acquire our complexion. This is Benjamin Franklin saying that about the Germans. And he says that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. Minority, okay? Very small. This is Benjamin Franklin, primary source. He said all Africa is black or tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, America exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. Wholly what? Black or tawny. Wholly so, America. Only the new people are a little lighter. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italian, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans. Okay? Also, the Germans. Now, he's saying the Saxons are only the white ones, but we already caught the earlier that the Saxons, there's a group of Saxons, many of the Saxons or sons of Isaac, yeah, sons of Isaac were melanated as well. But Benjamin Franklin, and you know, Germans, right? Dutch, black Dutch, yeah, swarthy complexion, German, black Dutch, all right? So put all this into play. All right, we're about to read some articles in a book here. Let's see what they're saying.
Now it says here, many people who now live and have roots in Northeast Mississippi, North Alabama, South Tennessee, and other parts of South are descendants of the Black Dutch. Really, who were and are the Black Dutch? The term in some areas has become so antiquated that only a few of the elderly even remember the use of the term. I first heard the term from my grandmother Crane, who had the surname Page. Her grandparents were butlers in Mayhalls. She would often refer to their lineage as Black Dutch. One of my aunts on my maternal side described her grandmother as Black Dutch. She said Poppy said we were Black Dutch, an Indian. Sometimes my mother would say, I think we are king to the Indians. Grandma so and so looked like an Indian. As a very curious youngster, I was always asking myself, who are the Black Dutch? Where did they come from? As time went by, the term lay dormant except when both sides of the family were together for a reunion or funeral, and conversation would arise as to who we were and where did we come from. Both sides of my family characteristics range from dark hair, dark eyes, and olive skin to red hair, blue eyes, and fair skin. This is somewhat typical in some families of the area. With such blending over the past 150 years, it was interesting to try to determine who was what and what was who, and what was who. All right, so it goes on. My cousin from Georgia came up to me one day in a low voice, seriously asked, who is the Black Dutch in our family? Although I had corresponded in the early 1990s with relatives concerning genealogy and would sometimes mention the Black Dutch, it was not until June 1995 that at Iuka, Mississippi Heritage Day Festival that I recently went into high gear and got into a serious search for the Black Dutch. The term Black Irish is sometimes used, but not as much as Black Dutch. When the term Black Dutch was mentioned, many of the people held up their hand and looked at one another. I knew then I was not alone in wondering about the Black Dutch. Surnames with Black Dutch heritage that have been collected to date are all English names. How interesting. What was recognized was that true Dutch names would be similar to German spelling and pronunciations. Names like Brown, Butler, Mayhaw, Johnson, Tiffin, and Macy, for example, somehow did not sound like Dutch or German. But these were the names with Black Dutch lineage. All right, so you hear what she's saying? And we already heard earlier that a lot of these people were actually Irish or English, who were actually Sephardic and Moorish people. Here's another note to handle. Almost every time the Black Dutch was found, Indian lineage was found. So you hear that? Almost every time Black Dutch was found, Indian lineage was found. And to date, a high percentage of association in the Uuka, Tishomingo, Itawamba areas has been established with the Cherokee. A representative of the Eagle Bear clan of the Free Cherokee said that her grandmother told her that her family escaped the Trail of Tears. They were forced to hide in caves and become known as Black Dutch to hide their identity. So you got to understand, there had to have been a large amount of Black Dutch population in order for you to even claim to be Black Dutch, so you can blend in and hide as Black Dutch. And why? And how could a Cherokee, right? How can an Indian blend in as a Black Dutch if a Black Dutch is so-called black, right? So-called black. So that Indian is also what? Dark skin, right? So-called Cherokee. What was the original name? Who are they really talking about? The tribal name of these people, because Cherokee didn't exist before Europeans came here. The name, I mean. That name was not here before Europeans got here. I was also told that other tribes beside the Cherokee also use the Black Dutch term, including the Chickasaws and the Choctaw. I believe the Creek descendants could have also used the term. One of my own grandmothers, whom my great aunt told me about, was referred to as Black Dutch and was often ironically mistaken for an Indian when they migrated to Oklahoma in the late 1800s. All right, so was his grandma an Indian? Was she a Sephardic Jew? More? Was she an Irish, Black Irish? He would have to do his genealogy, right? But again, what I'm trying to say from the beginning is, we got to embrace all the grandmas, not just one. During the 1996 Burnsville, Mississippi intertribal gathering on the banks of the Tenn-Tom Waterway, I walked with members of the Four Fires dance group from the Florence, Alabama area. One member of the drums group said his people, the Cherokee, were also known as Black Dutch, that this was just another name used to cover up their Indian identity. Remember, from the 1830s on, it was perilous times for those who braved Andrew Jackson's greed and political reign of terror on the Southeastern Indian people. Also, this gentleman mentioned that he had heard of two types of Dutch, the Highland Dutch and the Black Dutch. He said the Black Dutch were the Cherokee. Two members of the Four Fires dance group, and who are notably Cherokee, said their people were Black Dutch.
All right, so-called Cherokee, in case, anybody never heard me, my take on that. And, based on all the research we've done, guys, we got to understand it became a blanket term a lot of the time. It seems like a confederation of different peoples, different tribes, different Europeans as well. That's why they're being called the Black Dutch. Who's in Tennessee? You guys are going to see who ended up going there. A lot of these Black Dutch, as we're learning that we just read about, Sephardic Jews, Moors, these Bavarian, these Palatines, these Prussians, ended up in Tennessee, ended up marrying into indigenous families, and ended up becoming Cherokee. Yeah, a lot of them did. So it's a little biased sometimes. The information of, they're just trying to hide their Indian identity. Well, who's trying to hide their Indian identity? Give me their name, show me their genealogy. Let's be real about it, and let's not be biased. Let's see if he really has two indigenous parents, or if one of them is a so-called Black Dutch.
I was told that Black Dutch was simply another name for Cherokee. Census rolls in the Moulton, Alabama area in the late 1800s show a family name listed as white, then 10 years later as Black Dutch, and then 10 years later as Cherokee. Right, so it says the elusive question is, when did the term Black Dutch arise? A strong probability is after 1830, when the forced removal of the Cherokees from their homeland began. Were there, in fact, the Dutch people with similar physical characteristics, or was the term coined and manufactured to match the occasion? The fact has worked very well. It is understandable that the Cherokee and Chickasaw and others who remained behind had to come up with cover-up in order to survive. No choice but to go underground to become white in order to own land, keep their homes and survive, denying their Indian identity simply because it was the safest thing to do at the time. This may have led them, especially the women, to take on the term Black Dutch or Black Irish. Children, when they became the age to marry, may have been encouraged. May have, all right, may have. He's kind of like assuming a lot of things. May have been encouraged to seek out mates who were white or had more white or European heritage. The first generation of blending and reblending may have occurred after the 1840s and 1850s. The Northeast Mississippi Hills, where I was raised near Alabama, were considered fairly isolated until well in the 20th century. A few miles away in North Alabama are the Freedom Hills, which were even more isolated. He believes that many Chickasaw, Cherokee, as well as Creek descendants took refuge in these hills. We are known as the Hill people in this area. There's little doubt in my mind that many of the Hill people who claim the Black Dutch or Black Irish descent are actually more of Native American descent that they really know. And he could be true in many cases. In a lot of cases, he is right. Not every case. It always has been most interesting to me to travel the back roads of my home country, Itawamba, that borders Alabama, and notice the people. What is said to me is that many of the people don't know their heritage. I've heard associations of the term Black Dutch with the Black Forest in Germany. During the summer of 1996, I traveled to Germany on an education trip, and I asked many people about the term, but none of them had ever heard of it. On May 17, 1907, I visited the Oak Hill Indian Mountains Park and Museum located on County Road 187, just off Highway 157, 8 miles southeast of Moulton, Alabama. I copied the following quote that was displayed on the museum wall in large print. Before the Indian Removal Act in 1830, many of the Lawrence County Cherokee people were already mixed with white settlers. Now, were these people really white settlers?
So that's what I'm saying. He believes, and I'm trying to tell you, there's a whole history that he might not be aware of here. But that in these hills, we're known as the hill people. Following code that was
My fault, guys. I hit the wrong button. Don't worry, I'll get back in touch. But what wanted to say is, we're in the mind of a hijack. This is according to him. All right. Of course, he doesn't want to be associated with anything so-called black or anything like, that might deal with black Europeans or anything like that. That might make him reconsider what he thinks he knows. So, of course, he's trying to explain. Maybe it was this. I believe it was because of this. I believe. So he's just being very biased also on the Indian thing.
U.S. Census, only 78 people claimed their Indian heritage. In 1990, over 2,000 individuals claimed Indian descent. Today, over 4,000 citizens are proud to claim their Indian heritage and are members of the Ichota Cherokee tribe. In all many hundred years in which the Indian communities has interacted with the European communities who came to this new and wonderful country through intermarriage, many of our people are not likely to look Indian. But just because of their blood quantum has diminished, it does not diminish their ethnic pride or rights. The Black Dutch survive today in the hearts of many of the southern Appalachian Hill people, a proud people with an elusive spirit who had to hide out, go underground, and conceal their identity to live another day. They never gave up. They never surrendered. The drum beats for the elusive Black Dutch. My search continues.
He's got to keep searching. Got to keep searching. Oh, we got a blue screen. Hold on.
And it says here in the preface, let's just read a little bit of the preface.
Hold on, guys.
An elusive spirit who had Jews and Muslims in British colonial America. When Chickasaw lands were returned to Spain in 1781, the Coopers, right? Remember the Coopers? What did they do? What did the Coopers do? They were Spaniards. They were Spanish. They were so-called Black Spanish crypto Jews. And they had a very good chameleon-like ability, right? A very good chameleon-like ability. The Coopers alternated between claiming to be British, Portuguese, French, Spanish, and American, and gave their origin variously as Virginia, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Kentucky. They explained the Indian admixture in the family as Choctaw, Chickasaw, Cherokee, and Black Dutch, and Black Irish. Coopers considered Melungeon surname as white, so let's not forget that, right? To get the whole thing into perspective. It says here, one of the ancestors of co-author's spouse Teresa Panther Yates, the family intermarried with Tuscarora and Cherokee Indians and was later known as Black Dutch. Black Dutch. So these Sephardic crypto Jews, right, intermarried with who? Tuscarora and Cherokee, and they became known as what? Black Dutch. So you got to embrace both those lines, not just the Indian one.
So, guys, think about that. So if there's no African here involved in the whole picture, where's the so-called black coming from then, huh? It's got to be from one of them or both. And there's no African here.
All right, so we're at the book In Search of the Black Dutch by James Pylant. And it says here in the preface, let's just read a little bit of the preface. It says, one of the enduring mysteries of the American genealogy is the ethnic identification of a group widely and vicariously referred to as the Black Dutch, wrote the editors of the National Genealogical Society Quarterly in 1994. Spurred by Virginia Easley DeMarcy's study of the triracial isolate groups in the same periodical 2 years earlier, the National Genealogical Society Quarterly launched its Black Dutch project with the intention of releasing the results in the periodical's pages, if and when a consolidated study should provide a more definite answer to the enigma. However, no such results were published. Coincidentally, I had started a similar endeavor in 1998 by placing advertisements and announcements in newspapers, genealogical magazines, genealogical society journals, and with the aid and support of reference consultant at the Family Historical Library in Salt Lake City, Utah, I collected data submitted by family genealogists who had traditional Black Dutch ancestry. The NGS Quarterly Project Submission Guidelines ask for primary source documentation relating to the ethnicity of the Black Dutch ancestor, while explaining that it too could not conduct research for any individual participants. I faced a similar challenge in collecting information for my project, as most of the responders could provide a few genealogical details. A survey of these
responses identifying 131 American families claiming Black Dutch ancestry, as well as an overview and discussion of theories of the origin of Black Dutch, appeared as a 19th-page article in search of the Black Dutch in American Genealogical magazine in March of 1997. All right, and that was the article I was looking for from 1997. More than 2 decades after its release, the article has been updated, revised, and expanded as a separate publication, offering information on additional Black Dutch families and newly discovered sources. I am deeply indebted to the many family historians who shared data on their ancestors. Appreciation is also extended to those who assisted in this study, namely Raymond G. Matthews of the Family History Library in Salt Lake City, Dr. John Terrence Golden of the Palatine Immigrant, Russell P. Baker of the Arkansas History Commission, Arlene H. Eagle, PhD, and the late Myra Vanderpool Gormley, CG, as well as Gary C. Toms for his editorial review. So that was James Plyland, the author, and thank you very much for this article, James, and this information. Again, this is for fair use, education purposes only. It says the Black Dutch have long been an enigma in American genealogy. Their descendants are widely reported, yet no authoritative definition exists for this intriguing term. Many claims are made about the origins of the Black Dutch, but are any valid? Clues to the genealogical mystery were sought by contacting their descendants. Americans with a family tradition of Scot-Irish descent at least know that their ancestors were 17th century Scottish settlers in Northern Ireland. But such definitives is not the case when family folklore speaks of Black Dutch background. Descendants are uncertain of the compelling term meaning, and genealogists are equally puzzled about its origin. I can't find anyone who has heard of the Black Dutch, wrote syndicated newspaper advice columnist Amy Vanderbilt in 1967, responding to a reader's inquiry. In the 6th edition of the Melungeons, author Bonnie Baum, while not classifying the Black Dutch as synonymous with the subject of her book, offered a guess that the Black Dutch were descendants of Germanic race who were absorbed into the blood and culture of the Mediterranean people, whom they, as the barbarians, conquered during the early centuries. All right? So she offered her guess. That's what she's saying. They're trying to explain the swartiness. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to explain the complexion. So that was her guess. Yet it's highly unlikely the 19th century Black Dutch in America was self-identifying with the ancient ethnicity. The Dictionary of American Regional English defines Black Dutch, also Black Dutchmen, as a dark-complexioned people of uncertain origin. All right? The Dictionary of American Regional English defines Black Dutch as a dark-complexioned people of uncertain origin.
Okay.
Of uncertain origin.
You guys hear that? All right. A dark complexioned people of uncertain origin. They don't want to tell you what's the origin. We just broke it down though a little bit earlier. Now, we're not going off topic when we're talking about the origin of everybody. You know, we're breaking that down little by little, step by step. We're being very specific today. The topic's on the Black Dutch.
Jewish. One of the more widely circulated explanations of Black Dutch links them to the Sephardic Jews whose ancestors lived in Spain until their expulsion from Spanish Inquisition in 1492. All right, so it's not just about being Cherokee and Choctaw. One source elaborates the Sephardic Jewish theory by saying that they relocated to the Netherlands during the Middle Ages. So now they're saying this is a theory when we just went over all the information, and we know the Sephardic Jews named Amsterdam the New Jerusalem. That was their haven.
So you see how they're calling that a theory when that's actual history. Amsterdam was New Jerusalem. It was Sephardic Jews that owned and traded the Dutch West India and East India companies. They owned it mostly. They were the merchants mostly. Yeah.
We got the whole history. There's no going back on this. All right, so it's not a theory. Yeah, they did end up in the Netherlands, these Sephardic Jews. It says black refers to the hair, dark hair, in some cases slightly darker complexion, which was their Spanish heritage, it's claimed. So they're trying to, again, explain the ethnic part, the so-called black part, the complexion. They're trying to explain and say, oh, it must be the dark hair they're talking about. The Black Dutch eventually became Catholic in terms of religion, and then Dutch Reformed. It was these later generation people who migrated to the West Indies and elsewhere later settling in America. In the West Indies? Who's in the West Indies? So another fanciful, widely circulated explanation offers that the Black Dutch were those Netherlands or dark complexion who were descendants of the Spanish who occupied the Netherlands in the 15th century and intermarried with the natives who were blondes. All right, so a lot of this stuff, I'm going to tell you, it's all of the above. A lot of this stuff is all of the above. Spain occupied Holland in the 1500s, 1600s for a while. These intermarriages supposedly occurred between 1555 and 1609, the period Spanish soldiers were stationed in the Netherlands. During the 60 years they were stationed in the southern part of Holland, fraternization with Dutch women produced dark-skinned children, which were the beginning of the Black Dutch. So look what they're admitting here. They're telling you that the Spaniards were dark-skinned, and that's how they're saying Dutch became black. But that was, we know how to dodge the hijack because there was indigenous people there who were of color too. This over-publicized theory, most often found as tidbit in Genealogical Society newsletters throughout the 1990s, was unwittingly misled many families, historians, by relabeling descendants of inhabitants in the Bax region of Flanders, then Spanish Netherlands, as Black Dutch. Though historically, there's no tradition of this term. The Dutch government Central Bureau for Genealogy was established in 1945 as a state archive and genealogical organization. It houses original documents acquired by the Dutch government and genealogies of Jews in Holland. The Bureau is unable to explain the meaning of the Black Dutch. Really, they don't want to explain the meaning of the Black Dutch. Well, don't worry, we already did, and we're doing it. A century before the Spanish theory spread through the swapped-out circuit of Genealogical Society newsletters, a Cincinnati journalist wrote that the New York Dutch, who are sometimes called here, I am told, Black Dutch, because they have black hair and black eyes, as most Hollanders have, and are therefore unlike a High Dutch or German up the Rhine who speak a different language. The Black Dutch are not only ones identified as descendants of 16th century Spaniards. According to the American Irish Historical Society of New York, the Black Irish were descendants of Spanish Armada survivors. All right? And if you don't know, when they try to talk about Black Celts or Black Irish, again, they try to blame the Spaniards for going up there and raping all the women, or just mating or fraternalizing, as they said, with the women.
All right, so yeah, we gotta dodge the hijack big time on that. The Spanish Armada went everywhere, right? Now it's the Spanish Armada. When did we read about any Spanish Armada earlier? Yeah. The Spanish Armada, you mean when their Catholics were evacuating the Jews and the Moors from the Iberian Peninsula and they were fleeing through all over Europe. And then you're talking about the people that are already in these lands. We saw the coat of arms of all these last names, noble families, the clergy of the Vatican, and all this stuff. All right, and Bavaria.
So again, they're admitting at least that the Spaniards were black people, right? These survivors, according to the society, settled along the Irish coast, intermarrying with the Irish natives. Many of their descendants were rather striking in appearance with fair complexions, jet black hair, and blue eyes. Dutch Indonesian. Once isolated report states, so this is another term that the term was used in Indonesia as well, if you guys don't know. So they're going to explain this right here in their way. Dutch Indonesia, one isolated report says that descendants of Dutch Indonesian intermarriage call themselves Black Dutch. They are Dutch Indonesian. As Dutch subject citizens, they immigrated to Holland, and from there to the U.S. only after arriving in Holland, where they called Black Dutch. However, this mass immigration occurred between 1949 and 1962 when tens of thousands of Dutch Indonesians arrived in the Netherlands, more than a century after the Black Dutch reported in America. In 1967, Johan van Steenbergen of the Dutch Refugee Fellowship in San Diego, California, described the Black Dutch as the Caribbean Netherlands, identifying them as the mid-19th century offspring of blue-eyed, blonde-haired Dutchmen and their formerly enslaved wives, descendants from early slaves brought to the islands and the Guianas by the Dutch, French, and British merchant ships from West Africa. So Dutch the hijack, you guys already know what they're talking about. Really. So these Dutch, French, and British, those are all tags, remember? Remember, when you remove those tags, what do you end up fighting? We already read this. Let's not forget. When you remove those tags, Dutch, French, and British or English, what do you find?
Who are the people, the individuals involved? Get specific. All right, stop saying things out of nowhere with no sources and generalizing and being biased, because that's how you want history to be. It's not like that. Truth is not biased. Truth is just truth.
Iberian Sephardic Moorish people. Their languages are Papiamento. Papiamento, their offsprings are brown, they say, sometimes very dark skinned, are called criollos, he wrote. Their languages are Papiamento, Aruba, Curaçao, Bonaire, and Taki-Taki in Suriname. They are called West Indians, Creoles, or in general, Black Dutch. Again, these are actually Sephardic Jews and Moors. We got the whole history of who was colonizing these islands. Why? Why were they settling there? Where were they being pushed from? Where were they being persecuted from?
Mm-hmm.
And what were they doing in these West Indian countries, right? Sugar plantations.
Yep.
Remember sugar plantations? Who
Yep.
was running that? Who had the monopoly? Yet
Yep.
reports of the Black Dutch in mid-19th century North America have neither historical nor cultural correlation to the Caribbean Netherlands. He hasn't done his research. Many of these Sephardic so-called Dutch people, French Huguenots, English, ended up in the South eventually, in the Carolinas, in Virginia, in New York, Massachusetts, Maryland. We got that earlier, Maryland, right? The Coopers, right? They were Spaniards, right? Sephardic Jews, Coopers. What did they end up doing? Tobacco farms, plantations. And it says here African, all right? So we're gonna dodge the hijack big time here. I don't know what they're gonna tell us here, but we already know. Be on your guard. It says here African. A Dutch family surnamed Silly, immigrants to the U.S. in the 1800s, settling in Marion County, Iowa. One of her sons was nicknamed Coon, probably because of the derogative term for blacks. Probably, he don't know why. According to grandniece, because of his appearance, which was black. There are no other blacks in the family, though some have beautiful mahogany complexions, but light eyes. William Seeley, a shoemaker, and his wife Adriana Weischer Seeley, native Hollanders. All right, they have mahogany complexions. They're saying with light eyes. They're native Hollanders, and their children are consistently listed in both census and vital records as white. However, the expression of Black Dutch is not found in this family. In another family, we find this curious tradition. My mother said many times that when her grandfather got off the boat from the Netherlands, that he was so dark that people thought he was a Negro, but he was a Black Dutch. He wasn't a Negro. He's just a Black Dutch. He was so dark that they thought he was a Negro. How do you think somebody's a Negro? According to Norman R. Peters of the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society, Black Dutch means those blacks in what is now New York City during the rule of the Dutch before the English took over. Oh, really? So before the English got there, the Black Dutch were the actual Dutch that were in New York. Remember who these Dutch that settled in New York? They were Sephardic and Moorish people that coming in from Amsterdam and coming in from Brazil. They were being kicked out of there by the Catholics who were in town. The Portuguese had kicked them out. They kicked out the Dutch and the Sephardic Jews and the Huguenots and the Protestants that were there running it, the sugar plantations, and then took over their operations. They had to end up in New York, a lot of them, Virginia, South Carolina, Curaçao, Jamaica. They ended up in a lot of these places, right? So he's saying that the Black Dutch means those blacks that are what is now New York City during the rule of the Dutch before the English took over. Many of the descendants left New York for western Pennsylvania and Kentucky. The Dutch slave trade brought their ancestors to New Amsterdam as early as 1626, some being transported from a Spanish, Portuguese, or Dutch possession. All right, should I read that again? Many of these descendants, they went where? To Pennsylvania and Kentucky. So their ancestors, the Dutch slave trade, who were they trading as slaves? Did it say anything about Africans, them trading Africans? They're talking about Sephardic Jews, they're talking about Holland people, they're talking about Dutch people, right? The Dutch slave trade brought their ancestors to New Amsterdam. As early as 1626, some being transported from Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch possession. They're not talking about African people here. The Ramapo Mountain people of Bergen and Passaic counties, New Jersey, described themselves as part Indian or Indian white. claiming the Tuscarora Indians among their ancestors. Derogatively known as Jackson Whites or Jacks, the Ramapo Mountain people have been more specifically identified as free mulattoes of Dutch, Negro, and Native American descent. Dutch mulattoes, mulattoes of Dutch, free mulattoes of Dutch. They had bought farms in the Hackensack River Valley after later leaving when white neighbors harassed them and then settled in Ramapo Mountain area. The Ramapo Mountain people descend from groups of free blacks, identifying with their Native American bloodline to distinguish themselves from the enslaved. William DeFries of Ringwood, New Jersey, a descendant of the Ramapo Mountain people, was considered an authority on their dialect, which the white Dutch called Nexer Duits or Negro Dutch. All right. I just want to remind everybody that to not distinguish yourself from an enslaved person, that doesn't just mean that they weren't just enslaving Indians, right? And we know it wasn't Africans. We know hundreds of thousands of these Europeans, these so-called black Europeans, came in as indentured servants. They came in as convicts. They came in doing time. They were enslaved. They were brought here by force. Genealogists have suggested that the Black Dutch were an offshoot of a mystery people. They're so mysterious, these people. In the Appalachian known as the Melungeons, identified by ethnologists as triracial isolates. In the 18th and early 19th century, free mulattoes of black-white descent intermarried not only among themselves, but also with families of known Indian white descent, explained Dr. Virginia Easley DeMars in her groundbreaking article, Very Slightly Mixed Triracial Isolate Families of the Upper South, a Genealogical Study, published in the National Genealogical Society Quarterly. However, Dr. DeMars does not name the Black Dutch among the larger enclaves of triracial isolate communities, nor does her study appended list of 141 family surnames found in triracial groups parallel reported Black Dutch family names, with the exception of one key triracial isolate surname Collins. Now remember, not all these people who were Black Europeans or Black Dutch or Sephardic Jews or Moorish people, Muslim cryptos, Huguenots, not all these people ever labeled themselves Black Dutch. So of course they're not gonna come up as Black Dutch. They didn't need to. So these people are looking for only specific people who are labeling themselves Black Dutch. Leaving out a lot of people who are actually Sephardic Jews and Moors. Their surnames prove it. We went over it. Jews and Muslims in British Colonial America. They broke down all these surnames, what they really are and where they originate. So when we're reading this book and they're telling us, well, we didn't find the term Black Dutch everywhere, that doesn't mean these people weren't Sephardic Jews or Moors or Muslims, just because they weren't referring to themselves as Black Dutch. So Tennessee-born Spencer Collins told his niece Louis Rani Collins Carter that they were Black Dutch. She never questioned him, and the rest of the family never talked about their past, said a family member. As a 7-year-old in Davidson County, Tennessee, Spencer Collins was recorded in the household of his parents, Seaman and Lorinda Collins, and 3 siblings in 1880 federal census, with the numerator listing the family as mulatto. The same designation was found a decade earlier for Simeon and wife Lorena, before they became parents in the 1870 census in Wilson County, Tennessee. 2 years earlier, when Simeon Collins and Lorena Temples were wedded in Rutherford County, they were listed as colored. The same census racial classification was given in Wilson County in 2 previous census schedules, for 12-year-old Simeon in 1860 and as a year-old in 1850. Also in 1850, 2-year-old Lorena Temple appeared in Joseph Temple's household with the designation of mulatto, as were the others in her family. Yet by the time of Louis Ronnie Collins Carter's birth in 1913, the Collins family had relocated to Ardmore, Oklahoma, where they were listed in the 1920 census as white. So colored people, mulatto people, eventually be known as white. As white. Edward Ned Mosingo, Richmond County, Virginia, was a Negro man, but most of his descendants were considered white by 1790. Ooh, yay. The few times that anyone dared to mention that Edward was a Negro, the statement was politely ignored, wrote Joe Mosingo of latter generations in the filler on a Pontico Run, An African Captive, His White Descendants, and A Search for Family. Gosh, the hijack. The author also told one of Edward's descendants, who was
always told that the Mosingos were Black Dutch, explaining that she understood it referred to Indians who said that they were Black Dutch to stay off reservations.
We got a future video on this. Shout out to the Mosingo history. We got a brother, actually. He has this last name he's been telling me, and I've seen some YouTube shorts on it. And they're supposed to be Africans, but it's most likely Sephardic or Portuguese Jews that ended up in West Africa as well with that name. But this Mosingo, he was coming from Europe. He wasn't coming from Africa. And as you guys see, this was a Negro man, right? By 1790, his family was being considered white. It was status. It wasn't about complexion, but status.
Native American. Grogan, another triracial isolate surname, as identified by Bonnie Bond, the Melungeons, is also reported as Black Dutch. Cynthia Grogan, wife of John Harvey, Polk County, Tennessee, vehemently denied that she was an Indian and declared she was a Black Dutch. State descendants, the Grogans migrated to Missouri and settled in Polk County by 1860, the year the family were listed in the federal census as white, as they were a decade later. In Cedar County in 1870, 6 children were dead in the household, including 9-year-old Sarah. Your grandmother, Sarah Harvey, was a near full-blood Native American as could be. Clarence Harvey wrote to Sarah's granddaughter, the Nancy Depew, in 1939. The Grogans were Cherokees. The Harveys were Creeks, he added. In reverse situation of people of color using Germanic sounding terms to explain their ethnicity, descendants of a German immigrant reported a Black Dutch tradition to conceal Native American descent. Dean Hardesty told us of such tradition in his family. My grandmother Nancy Jane Alspa always said she was Black Dutch. My grandfather James Hollis Foster would laugh and say he was an Indian. This was a little family joke because my father, his brothers and sisters had features almost twin-like to the Bushy Head family in Cherokee. Bushy Head family in Cherokee, huh?
Mm-hmm.
We always accepted this as what children of Indian descendant in Tennessee in the early days were taught, to say to keep from suffering the fate of other Indians they had known or had heard about. A native of Franklin County, Tennessee, Nancy Jane Alspa, descended from Palatines from the Rhineland, Dean Hardesty also told of his interview with the widow of Chief Calvin McGee of the Creek Nation east of the Mississippi, in Admiral, Alabama. She talked about what difficulty some of the Creeks were having proving their lineage because of their grandparents had claimed to be Black Dutch in the past. Reportedly, dark-complexioned Joseph Lemore, born in Tifton, Georgia in 1870, didn't want people to know he was Black Dutch because he was afraid of being sent to a reservation, said a descendant. There are many other such stories telling of an alleged Native American ancestor who relabeled themselves as Black Dutch and Black Irish, hiding in plain sight. In 1981, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, U.S. Department of Interior, issued a recommendation that the Lower Muskogee Creek tribe east of the Mississippi not be acknowledged as an Indian tribe for lack of genealogical evidence to support claims of descendancy from an historical tribe or tribes which combine and function as a single autonomous entity after the 1830s, as explained further. The basic position taken by the petition concerning the historical existence of groups between the time of Creek removal and its organization in 1972 is that it grew out of Creek communities, which remain in western Florida, southern Alabama, and southern Georgia after the removal of the Creek Nation. These communities are said to have survived clandestine by hiding their identity as Indian, example, claiming to be Black Dutch or similar, and operating under the cover of family gatherings and churches. Essentially, no information was developed which could confirm this position with regard to members of this group. Similarly, in 2000, the Department of Interior in Washington, D.C. received a letter of intent to petition for a federal acknowledgement from a group called the Cherokees of Lawrence County, Tennessee, Sugar Creek Band of the Southeastern Cherokee Confederacy, Inc., also known as the Central Band of Cherokee. The group claimed descent from Cherokees remaining in Tennessee after the tribe ceded its lands by treaty in 1806, or from tribal members who either evaded or escaped removal during the Trail of Tears in the 1830s and returned to their lands in the Lawrence County vicinity. A subsequent letter from the group dated 20 February 2005 stated that the Cherokee in the area went silent and hid their race out of fear. Black Dutch was invented. The Department of the Interior responded that this petition needs to describe how the hidden Black Dutch and the non-Indian individuals merged and became the petitioner's group, specifically that the petition must identify individuals labeled as such and provide a rationale of how individuals perceived as Black Dutch
maintain a group identification through time. A final determination made in 2012 ruled that the central band of Cherokee did not meet mandatory criteria for acknowledgement under the Code of Federal Regulations. In a report of his findings of group petition, Larry Echo Hawk, Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs, wrote, although these descent reports illustrate the family lines of various members, they clearly do not demonstrate descent from the historical tribe.
Uh-oh.
Where is the genealogy?
Uh-huh.
All right? Where's the genealogy?
That's what I was saying earlier.
In fact, they do just the opposite. They show that the petitioners claim ancestors immigrated from the British Isles, France, and Germany over long periods to the American colonies, in particular to Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia, and the other time their descendants moved as individuals or small family groups to Tennessee. Neither these descent reports nor other evidence in the record show that the immigrants married into Cherokee tribe or were otherwise associated with it or any other tribe.
Yep.
Family genealogist Marcia Pittman McFarland described her former husband's family, who called themselves Black Dutch, as dark-haired and dark-complexioned. When her ex-father-in-law, Albert Clayton Elliott, registered for the Selected Service System in 1942, he was described as brown-eyed, brown-haired, and dark-complexioned. He identified as white, though. As 2-year-old, Abner was enumerated in the house of his parents, Frank and Ella Elliott, on the rolls of the 1900 federal census in Choctaw Nation Indian Territory. He was dark complexioned, but he claimed white. He and his parents and sister were natives of Indian Territory, and their race was recorded as white, but they were dark complexioned. Abner's father, Frank, or Abner Franklin Elliott, who claimed to be 1/8 Choctaw, 1/8 Choctaw, 1/8, just 1/8, enrolled in the Choctaw Nation in 1900. However, his enrollment was rejected. In his application, Abner Franklin Elliott stated that both parents, James Elliott and Mary Landers Elliott, claimed Choctaw. In 1900, his parents were farming in Choctaw Nation. The federal census that year recorded Tennessee as James Elliott's birthplace, while that of his wife, Mary, was given as Indian Territory. So a native of Bedford County, Virginia, Eleanor Stone Hardy was identified by descendants as Black Dutch or part Dutch. Her daughter, Ruth Walling, spoke freely of their ancestry being Black Dutch and French. Eleanor Race was consistently listed as white in federal census enumerations, 1850, 1860, 1870, and 1880. She migrated to Texas, where she married a widower, Thomas Jefferson Walling, in Rusk County, Texas, in 1854. Genealogical research traces her ancestry from English settlers in Virginia and Maryland in the 17th century, though the family traditions claim of French has been confirmed with the discovery of their descent from the Huguenot, Reno family, Stafford County, Virginia. Who's the Huguenots?
Yep.
Yet the source of the family Black Dutch background remains a mystery, right?
Okay, so if Huguenots are ex-Moors, and we know a lot of Huguenots were so-called black, they're still trying to figure out why they so-called black. It's a mystery. They don't understand the true history and ethnicity of a lot of people in colonial times. And this is what I'm trying to show you guys. All right, and when we read these articles and these books, you got to have the whole context behind everything, behind everybody. What's a Huguenot? What's a Sephardic Jew? What's a Marrano? What are the crypto Jews? What's a Black Irish? It's a lot.
But they know she's a Huguenot, and they know that her ancestors were English settlers in Virginia. That doesn't mean she was white or they were white people from England. Eleanor's husband, Thomas Jefferson Walling, claimed 1/8 Cherokee ancestry. I am convinced that my grandfather was pure Anglo-Saxon. So even this person is saying, he said he was Cherokee, but he was straight up Anglo-Saxon. A grandson strongly emphasized in 1940 disregarding his uncle's sworn statement of the family's Cherokee descent to the U.S. Courts of Claim more than 30 years earlier. Ruth Walling's use of Black Dutch to describe her family's ancestry is unlikely to have been done so to disguise Native American ancestry, as she wrote of her father's Indian-proof papers. Ruth Walling also did not speak ashamedly or in hushed tones of her Black Dutch ancestry, in sharp contrast to Stephanie Rose Bird's own experience with the term in light, bright, and damp, near-white, biracial, triracial culture in America. Bird tells us of a visit in 1990 with an aunt who leaned over and, even though we were alone, whispered behind her hand, "We're Black Dutch, you know." In another family, the term had an entirely different connotation.
This was always said with considerable pride, as if being Black Dutch was a badge of distinction. There are other instances where claims of Black Dutch and Native American ancestry were found in the same family, again without sense of secrecy. The whole Morgan generation claimed to be half Indian and part Black Dutch, said Margaret Teague, Parton Loveday of Copeland Creek, Sevier County, Tennessee, in 1939 of her maternal roots. Born in Missouri 1843, Lavinia Ann Gunter was the daughter of Major William T. Gunter and Cynthia Melinda Franks Gunter, who resided in Jackson County, Alabama. At the onset of the Civil War, Lavinia Ann married Charles M. Haley. The Haley's grandchildren said that she was of Black Dutch and Cherokee descent. When Lavinia Ann died, leaving young children, her mother Cynthia Franks Gunter moved into Haley family's home. It's thought that since Cynthia had an active presence in the early years of her grandchildren's lives, she was the source of their Cherokee and Black Dutch tradition, referring to specifically to her own mother, Elizabeth Bott Franks. Genealogical research by descendant traces the German Vaughn's to Virginia's Shadonia Valley, where the immigrant ancestor John Paul Vogt settled in 1744. All right, so these people claiming Indian again, when they did the genealogical research, they turned out to be Germans, German immigrants. That doesn't mean they were white. That doesn't mean they didn't go through a middle passage. That doesn't mean they weren't cramped up in a chip. That doesn't mean they weren't treated like servants and sold and had an indenture.
Mm-hmm.
Black Dutch as a catch-all phrase and a derogatory term. My grandmother told me that her father was Pennsylvania Black Dutch, wrote Suzanne Benning. They were coal miners. Her grandmother told her in the evening when they came up from the mines, they were covered in coal dust, making them appear to be black-skinned. Oh, shoot. So they're black-skinned because of the coal. My grandmother told some of the grandchildren that we are Black Dutch, stating that meant of the working class of people, reported Dorothy Hodges. Solon Bolon Reeves was often told by his mother that he was part Black Dutch. Since he was quite young at the time, he did not know if there was such a thing, or if she were merely teasing him. There's also a report of the expression being used to describe the runt of the family. Genealogist Bert P. von Coleman surmised Black Dutch is an Anglo slang expression which seems to have evolved from the Dutch slang usage of black or Schwartz.
Mm-hmm.
Black or what? Swarty. Black is swarty. Swarty is black. Which is slang means not pure, second rate, undesirable, or legal.
Okay, do you guys hear that? What does black mean? Really? What does black really mean in the Anglo slang? Or in law, maybe, right? It means not pure, second rate, undesirable, or illegal. Huh? Do you still be calling yourself black?
That means so-called black. The Dictionary of American Regional English refers an 1854 diary entry, strange curious statement, along down the center of my back is brown stripe like the stripe of a Black Dutchman's back. So it became a derogatory term. Let's see what's coming. It says German. Black Dutch is akin to Pennsylvania Dutch. So this is another reason this Black Dutch is being used. Remember, the word, it says here that both the terms are reference to the word Deutsch, pronounced Deutsch, meaning German. Deutsch. That's how you say German in Deutsch. German, Deutsch, Black Dutch also meant Black German. We know there was many Black swarthy Germans. We got the statement from Benjamin Franklin in the 1750s, letting us know not to Germanize America with these swarthy Germans. So again, Black Dutch also referred to the Black Germans.
All right, and we also saw all these noble family coat of arms. I mean, we know there was so-called Black Germans, all right, and they weren't just from the offspring of Spanish Armada, Dutch the hijack, and they're not necessarily Africans just because they were so-called black.
The black, so-called Negro Germans. The Black Dutch were also Germans. Wasn't just about Indians hiding. The mistake has arisen from the popular confusion between the terms Dutch and German, which are synonymous with many, noted Professor S.S. Haldeman of the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia in 1872. Pennsylvania Dutch descended from German-speaking immigrants.
coming to America in the 17th and 18th centuries. Professor Haldeman called the Pennsylvania Dutch language a South German dialect corrupted or enriched by English words and idioms under a pure or modified pronunciation. As he further explained, their speech was found largely among the country's population and may be constantly heard in the county's towns of Easton on the Delaware Reading, on the Schuylkill, Allington, on the Lehigh, Harrisburg, on the Susquehanna, Lebanon, Lancaster, and York. Black Dutch is simply an expression, said a longtime resident of St. Louis, Missouri in 1982. As far as I know, this English language expression was native to St. Louis, as it means a Caucasian person of German origin whose complexion is swarthy. Okay, does that make sense to you? A Caucasian person of German origin whose complexion is swarthy. Okay, what did I tell you earlier? They're referring to black Negroes, so-called Negro Germans, when they were saying Black Dutch too. Again, it wasn't just about Indians trying to hide so they wouldn't get relocated. That did happen, yes, but it wasn't always the case. We got to stop generalizing, because they're telling you straight up.
So I know a lot of people keep thinking, they want to say, oh, it's not just a tan. As much as you guys want to make it, oh, black Germans. We're not talking about, first of all, modern people today, guys. We're not talking about modern people. All right? And we already proved Swarthy was applied to so-called Negro Europeans. No sugarcoating it. Don't practice cognitive dissonance. As much as it makes you feel a certain way, it's the truth. We're not just talking about tans, even though they did apply Swarthy to people who might look a little tanned or dark. But it literally, as somebody just said, Dana, black equals Schwarz in German. Schwarz is black. It's literally black. Negro, that's how they refer to Negroes in Europe as well. And Indians, dark-skinned Indians here, and these colonial records.
Up here, it says it's a Caucasian person of German origin whose complexion is swarthy. Swarthy. He's Caucasian, but he's swarthy. There were hundreds of these people around, and the phrase was in common use. Again, Black Dutch, how can you hide as a Black Dutch if it wasn't a common phrase at the time? Why was it a common phrase? Because it was an actual thing. Black Dutch, Black Germans, and Black Holland, Sephardic Jews, Moorish Muslims, they were so-called black. And they were coming from Holland. They were being called Dutch. It was a common phrase in use. It was a common thing to see a Black Dutch or a Black German. It was a common thing. That's why people can hide under that. The expression, however, is not native to St. Louis. Minnie Papstein was born in Dramberg, Germany, now Poland, in 1888 and immigrated to the U.S. with her parents the following year. By the 1900s, the Papsteins settled in Will County, Illinois. 4 years later, she wedded German-born Frank Depperman in Kankakee, Illinois, and the couple had 7 children. Years later, she used the expression Black Dutch when referring to her daughter-in-law, the black-haired, fair-complexioned Clementine Hamilton, who had married Minnie's son in 1940. Due to divorce, Clementine was estranged from her children for many years, but her granddaughter Patty Browning eventually located and reunited with her. When Patty asked about her alleged Black Dutch descent, Clementine admitted she was unfamiliar with the term. Browning's genealogical research revealed no immediate Germanic ancestry in the Hamilton family. Minnie Papstein Depperman had disliked her daughter-in-law and is believed that labeling her a Black Dutch was intended as an insult. Okay. Evangelina Eva Steele was born in 1860 and raised in a farming community in Sullivan County, Pennsylvania, among German families with surnames such as Hussinger, Diefenbach, Morningstar. All right, Morningstar. That's a good one right there. So I believe shout out to a new breed. He explained the Morgenstar or Morgenstein, who became Morningstar. These were German families who took on Indian identities, and they started telling people that Morningstar was an Indian surname, when it was Morgenstern, something like that. All right, so right here is clearly telling us that they're German. The Morningstars are a German family. Merkel and dies. She became the mistress of wealthy Robert Ray Hamilton, a member of the New York State Assembly, and then deceived him into marrying her after claiming she gave birth to his child in 1888. The baby, however, was purchased by her from a midwife. It was the child of German parents and was very dark, a newspaper reported. Again, this was a German child from German parents, and the newspaper at the time reported him to be very dark. This is a black Dutch baby. I can never love it, Eva said. I can't kiss it. I hate it. A fairer substitute was purchased to replace the dark complexioned child. You hear this? The deception was exposed after Eva stabbed a nurse who had discovered the truth. Whoa. Lynn Morrow of the Center for Ozark Studies at Southwest Missouri State University in Springfield reported a case study of Black Dutch as slang. All right, so they go on to explain the slang used, why it was used. So we're getting a lot of different reasons, right, for the Black Dutch. Just to continue a little bit here, it says the Black Germans. Mr. Taffel of the 1st German Regiment from Cincinnati writes, from Beverly, Virginia, the houses we passed on the march were all empty of male inhabitants, who, as some of the remaining women openly admitted, had joined the Southern Army. We discovered what lies are being spread about us in a delightful way. The wife left behind as a secessionist tavern keeper assured our staff officers that the Black Dutch lived like cannibals and did not spare even women and children. When the lieutenant colonel pointed out the peacefully encamped soldiers and told her that these were the Black Dutch, she did not want to trust her eyes. Not a cherry had been picked from her tree. In gratitude for this, she told the colonel that this personal description was well known to the enemy and that he would be the first target of their bullets and his shirt, if his shirt sleeves or cuffs and white-brimmed white hat. McCook has been wearing a black hat and blue blouse ever since. In 1826, the Hampshire Gazette reprinted the Provincial Literary Cadet's harsh assessment of the Black Dutch of Pennsylvania, equating the term as high and low as social status rather than dialect. High or low social status. So a lot of times it was used for social status. The Black Dutch. This is a term that stiff and supercilious aristocrats who hang upon and rally around the coalition applied to staunch Republican patriots of Pennsylvania. As long as they had a hope of electing John Sargent and one of the 2 other coalition members of Congress, they bawled out lustily reaction in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania's turning, John Binns says so, but since the signal defeat, nay, the complete overthrow of the whole coalition party in that patriotic state, they went their rage against its citizens by calling them the stupid Black Dutch. Immediately upon the receipt of the glorious intelligence from Pennsylvania, a prominent Adams man in Frederick expressed himself to the following effect. The Black Dutch of Pennsylvania are like a drove of bullocks. Where one leads, the rest follow. Such as the epithets and aspirations cast upon the honest, intelligent Germans and their descendants in Pennsylvania, Black Dutch, Black Germans, because they refused to be sold to a coalition along with John Binns. Let the Germans of Maryland, who manfully support the cause of their brethren in Pennsylvania, think of this denunciation of the aristocrats, all right? American Dictionary of Regional English vaguely cites Low German Plattdeutsch in 1939, reference to a Fox family known as Black Dutch. Pennsylvania, as far back as we can trace them, they are low, not all, small, and have black features. Black features. The use of low in this instance refers to the language, not social status. Among the Dutch-German border people do speak a dialect known as Plattdeutsch or Low German, says Raymond Matthews, but I cannot imagine the word Platt being confused with the English word black. The term Black Dutch is not a specific thing. I hope you guys understood what I was trying to show. I hope you guys understand that there was actually continuing.
All right, we're gonna get to the second part of this reading, the recording. Just want to go somewhere real quick. If you're from Germany, if you speak German, you should know out of, more than all of us, what Schwarz means. All right, being of a dark hue, moderately black or tawny. All right, we're talking about the specific word Swarty, not now cognitives or whatever you're talking about, babbling about, what it could mean. It could mean so many other things, but it actually means a very specific thing, being of a dark hue or dusky complexion. Tawny, all right? Definition number 2 of Swarty, this is in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, means black, as the Swarty African, okay? Stop practicing cognitive dissonance and stop generalizing with the word Swarty, because we're not just using Swarty. They're also being described as dark skin, very dark, dark brown, dark complexion. They don't have to use Swarty. Yeah, brunette too, tawny, yeah, olive, yeah. So there is no such thing as so-called black or white. Those are crayon colors, guys. All right, there's many shades apart from that people are. And unfortunately, these all these shades get grouped into white or black. And that's why we gotta dodge our own hijacks. We can't do the same thing that everybody else does. All right. Another thing I want to share real quick. We're talking about white people passing as white or people so-called Negroes being called white. It says free white persons in the fourth edition of Black's Law Dictionary that it includes all European Jews, which that means Sephardic Jews, right? Which are melanated people. It also includes mixed Latin, Celtic Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal. Free whites includes Moors, okay? Free whites includes Moors and North African inhabitants of Sicily and the mixed Slavs of Tartar inhabitants of South Russia. It does not mean Caucasian race. Free white, okay? Free white, all your crayon colors, all this white, black, and white, black, you black, white, you black, no, black. It means tan, it means no. You guys don't understand real history, the terminology and etymology of things. Hey, Gabriel, with this ain't personal. We're just trying to teach a real history that never got told to us. It's okay. If your ancestors were swarthier, it's okay. Embrace it. So if they wasn't, then hey, but we're talking about for the people that do have this ancestry, the people that do want to learn all this stuff about this side of Germany and the Holland, this history of Germany and the Netherlands that gets swept under the rug and gets kind of whitewashed and Pan-Africanized, turned into Africans as well. All that is all false history. We got to start doing real research. If we're going to be talking about history. If not, then it's an opinion, and that's what you got to say. Hey, my opinion is, I believe, and that's what you did, and I appreciate that part. But it's this difference between knowing and believing, and biases and wants and stuff, and truth. Truth has no biases. All right, we're gonna get to the second part. All right, we're reading the book. I can remember. It's gonna tell us again what book we're reading here. Thanks for tuning in.
Continuing the book In Search of the Black Dutch by James Pylan. Continuing on page 24. It says here, who were the people of the Carolinas that were formerly referred to as the Black Dutch? R.G. Roberts of Oxford, Alabama, asked Watson's magazine in 1911. Roberts found it doubtful of the terms being contemptuously used, saying, I cannot see why Teutonic people should be called black. The magazine's editor, Thomas Edward Watson, responded after consulting Judge Walter Clark of Raleigh, North Carolina, and he said, the Black Dutch is not a name of reproach, but the ordinary, well-recognized designation of the South Germans. Example, the Bavarians, Württembergers, and the people from the Palatinate. Okay, that's who they're referring to as Black Dutch, who was in the Palatinate region. Remember, many Moors and Sephardic Jews had gone there. And who were the Bavarians? Remember the coat of arms we showed. These people are dark-skinned, all right, dark-skinned, as contrasted with the North Germans, who are fair-skinned and light-haired, blue-eyed people, as you know. Many of these South Germans came to Central and West North Carolina by way of a temporary residence for a generation or so in Pennsylvania. They were called Black Dutch, all right? He's letting you know, primary source from the time, he's like, no, it's simply, these are their dark-skinned people. Germans in the volunteer states, central, eastern counties are identified as Black Dutch by Friedrich Lolon Mucky and A History of the German Element at French in Newbert, Tennessee. Appearing in Tennessee Ancestors, Mucky states, these hardy individuals were often referred to as Black Dutch, Schwartz Dutch, or Swartz, right, Swarty, because many had dark complexions. Why? Because many had dark complexions. Dark-skinned, dark complexions. Don't practice cognitive dissonance. They're not just talking about tans. They or their parents had originally settled in Pennsylvania or Virginia before coming to Tennessee. Who's in Tennessee? Most had immigrated in the late 1700s.
from the Rhineland Palatinate, the Rhine Pals. All right, many more Sephardic Jews had fled to that region of Germany, and other smaller German principalities, as well as other southern European kingdoms. All right, these are the same Germans that Benjamin Franklin was complaining about, these swarthy Germans coming to Germanize America, make it more swarthy. He literally said that. One of the Knoxville surnames Muckey mentioned is Rule. A respondent to our survey reported that James Benjamin Rule, a Knoxville native, spoke of his background as a black Dutchman. The Milgram family of Southwest Virginia, a genealogy compiled by Beverly Repaz Hawk, certified genealogist for Whitey County Historical Review, traces descendants of a 19th century German immigrant by the next generation, Frederick Eppley Milgram, who had a dark complexion. He had what? Had a dark complexion, dark eyes, and dark brown hair, described his ancestry as Black Dutch, a Black Dutch descendant of the Kaltesen family of Württemberg, Germany, was described as, right, as quite dark and black curly hair. All right, can I get any more clearer? Again, a Black Dutch descendant of the Kaltesen family of Württemberg, Germany, was described as quite dark with black curly hair. Black curly hair. Always dressed in a dark suit. Cecil Humphrey Smith, Director of Research Achievements, Ltd. Center for Heraldic and Genealogical Research in Canterbury, England, remarked, "It is, of course, a splendid description of people from the Wiesbaden, Frankfurt area of Hesse, which is roughly the upper Rhine." So, where Hesse or the Hessians, who was the Hessian soldiers, the auxiliaries that came, these were swarthy Germans. All right, they participated in many wars, even in the Caribbean. So they're from the Upper Rhine, the old Netherlands Dutch border country was not so far away, and it would not seem unreasonable to hear Deutsch being confused with Dutch and New World or Platte low with black. All right, that's what he's saying. James H. Swiss genealogy specialist for the Family History Library, speculated that the Black Dutch originated from Schwarzwald, Germany's Black Forest. So they're trying to explain why they're called black. Oh, they must be from the Black Forest, that's why. Even though they're dark complexion, dark skin, or quite dark. This same theory was suggested by Pennsylvania Historical Society, all right, but that's just a theory. This region was mentioned as a possibility in the Genealogical Helper. Several professional researchers have been contacted on this question, and it appears that Black Dutch referred to a native of southern Germany, the Baden area. The late Myra Vanderpool Gromley, certified genealogist, traced her ancestry from Hans Michael Holt, 1696-1767, who came to the colony of Virginia in 1717, settling in Germana, a German community. Johnny Cerny of Lineages Inc. in Salt Lake City published her findings on Holt's German origins, specifically his birth in Baden-Württemberg, Stettin, and Husselberg, Württemberg. The immigrant's son, Michael Holt Jr., moved to Orange County, North Carolina, where he served as a justice and a captain in the provincial militia. An interesting physical description of the younger Holt appeared in Biographical History of North Carolina. He was very dark, okay? This is his primary source description. We're not talking about whitewashed images. We're talking about his description, a primary source, right? This same German that we're talking about, the ancestors of this person. He was very dark, not just a tan. He was very dark, so much so that his German neighbors called him Black Michael, right? They called him Black Michael, so-called black. Many a jest was made at his expense on account of his complexion. All right. A neighbor with seeing him carry an umbrella to keep off the sunshine said, "Hello, Mike, carrying an umbrella to protect the devil's leather." Uh-oh, man. They were literally, calling him racist things, sounds like, in those times. All right. We're talking about a German who was very dark. They even called him Black Michael. There are other instances where much was made over Germans with dark coloring. Again, Germans with dark coloring. In Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, Michael Hartman, the son of a German immigrant, was described as having very black hair, leading to his family being known as die Schwarz Hartmanner, the Black Hartmans. Black German was used to describe the Stifler family of New Paris, Indiana. One descendant attributed her very dark complexion to Indian blood, so the Indians are very dark, huh? A family of dark-colored Germans, named Woodliff migrated to Texas from Vigo County, Indiana. Curiously, this family is designated as black. All right. Curiously, they were being classified as black on the 1900 census in McLean County, Texas. You guys hearing this? Real black Germans. We're not just talking about whitewashed images or descendants, as it says here, grandson of Black Michael. Yeah, things can change in a couple generations, but these original Germans are being described as very dark complexion. They're even being classified as black in the 1900 census in McLean County, Texas, and white on the 1910 enumeration again in McLean County. All right, from black to white. So the census takers' opinions is what changes 10 years later. But as you guys can see, they're being listed as black here. All right, so-called black. The H.T. Woodley family, described as dark-colored Germans, were designated as black in the 1900 census in Waco, Texas. All right, so don't practice cognitive dissonance. In 1991, Dr. John Terence Golden, a descendant of the Black Dutch Wichelmann family, interviewed a German-born Wichelmann descendant from the island of Fehmarn, Schleswig-Holstein. She has about an average complexion. I do not know how she compares with the people of Fehmarn, but in any case does not especially consider herself Black Dutch. She had heard of the term, though, and says it only means that a German has darker skin and eyes than the average, this being largely due to the intermarriage with the Spanish. She said the Black Dutch are often proud of being Black Dutch. A German popular song expresses this. So look at this song. It says, dark brown is the hazelnut. Dark brown is the hazelnut. Dark brown just like me. Dark brown must my girlfriend me. Exactly just like me. Dark brown like a hazelnut. Who's that describing? A profile. In the Utter survey of 154 American families, reportedly of Black Dutch ancestry, evaluated from both submitters and previously published accounts, 146 distinct surnames were found, nearly half of which are either German or possibly Americanized from Germanic origin. In 2 instances, the surnames were not indicated. Of the 45 providing a physical description of the Black Dutch ancestor, the predominant characteristics, all right, again, the predominant characteristics were olive, dark or very dark complexion, brown, dark brown, black, jet black, or dark-haired, brown, dark brown, black, dark or very dark-eyed and small, fairly small, short and very short, of stature or not tall, all right? That was the general description of the so-called Black Dutch ancestors, whether they were from the Netherlands or Germany, you know, when they're saying Dutch or Dutch. 3 respondents of the survey reported Little Black Dutch as a family expression, but they were unable to explain its meaning. Of 133 identifying the Black Dutch ancestors, earliest known American residents, 88 were Southern. As noted in Dictionary of American Regional English, the Black Dutch are especially common in the South. Continues, says there are those who, after peering into the image of a dark tintype, conclude that it proves their ancestor was of Native American heritage because they're seeing the dark complexion of the Indians, right? While there were instances of Black Dutch being used to disguise African ancestry in white families. So does that make sense to you guys? How can you disguise African ancestry in a white family? That doesn't make sense, guys. You see, because these people were literally Negro, Germans, Negro, Holland, Dutch people, Netherlands people. And a lot of times their status became white, their status, not complexion.
Or
Eventually, through mixture, yeah, their descendants would become lighter or darker, depending on who they're mixing with. The oft-circulated claims of Native Americans' widespread camouflaging as Black Dutch is disputed by Larry Echo Hawk, Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs, who found no such evidence. Genealogists are strongly cautioned against making a quick assumption about their ancestors' alleged Black Dutch background. The corrupted catch-all definitions do not point to Germanic ancestry exclusively. A blanket definition cannot be given for every American family claiming descent from the Black Dutch. All right, so I kind of agree with that. You got to kind of do your own individual research and your own genealogy to see what type of so-called Black Dutch that may be, if you have any stories of that in your family. Continuing in the book, In Search of the Black Dutch. It says here, American families reporting Black Dutch descent. Now he says, no claim is made that any of the surnames listed below are of Black Dutch origin, only that they are found as the earliest known or key surnames of families reporting Black Dutch descent. It says here, Albert Eugene, Albert of Fortune, Arkansas, who claimed to be a Black Dutchman, was described as being slightly small and a bit dark complexion. Alexander, Northern Alabama, Lemuel Leander Alexander, all right, they're talking about these surnames, and Lovina Catherine McCullough. They're claiming to be Black Dutch, is what they're saying. The Auspal name, it says that they were originally Palatines from the Rhineland, all right, Palatine Germans, the ones Benjamin Franklin was complaining about. Barry, last name Alice Lewis Barry, he claimed Black Dutch descent. Battenfield, Baumgartner, says Jacob Baumgartner was born about 1792, perhaps in Shenandoah County, Virginia. His wife, Margaret Moyers, was born 1794 in Whitey County, Virginia. She was the daughter of Peter Moyers. Descendants of this family were described as rather dark complexioned. Baylord, another name. So they're saying she was medium complexion. It says Beard. They ended up in Charleston, South Carolina, it says. Bierbauer, Bilderback. Charles Henry Bilderback was born in Washington County, Pennsylvania. In 1824, he married Marianne Combs. Civil War service records describe him as a dark complexioned, all right, dark complexion, gray eyes, just like Lincoln, brown hair, and 6 feet in height, just like Lincoln. All right, that describes Lincoln a lot right there. Bilderbach, Black, all right, another surname. Esther Black, 1769-1835, married Reverend Nathan Thompson. By 1785 in Lincoln County, North Carolina. Supposedly she was Native American. A story passed among her descendants says that she explained her dark skin, all right, she explained her dark skin to authorities during the Indian removal by saying she was Black Dutch, okay? So she might actually be a little bit of both, right? Blair, another name, claiming Irish, Scottish, and Black Dutch ancestry. Booker, Bosie, and they were coming from the Netherlands, it says. And Brown, so natives of Madison County, North Carolina, that Brown family, they're claiming Black Dutch. Another Brown family here in Hiawassee, Towns County, Georgia. So Selena Adeline Brown, they're saying that my great-grandmother, Selena Brown, told my father that the Browns were Black Dutch. Selena had a dark complexion, all right? A dark complexion, dark hair and dark eyes. She looked Indian in her photograph. So yeah, a lot of indigenous blood amongst these people. It says another descendant of his family claims that the Browns fled to Holland from Germany, then came to North Carolina. So this Brown family, right? Carricker, another surname. Stanley County, North Carolina. That's where they were coming out of. Harper, Cates, says Alcy, pronounced Alta or Alda. The wife of James Shitwood was Black Dutch. Her husband was hanged following the Battle of Kings Mountain. He was hanged. Who were they hanging, guys? Come on now. He's a black, so-called Black Dutch hanged. Alcy resided in 1780 in Rutherford County, North Carolina, and in Georgia, 1812. She was dark complexion, okay, and thought to be German. The family was Protestants. Who's the Protestants? You guys already know. Christopher, another surname. James Marion Christopher was born in 1854 in Georgia. I was told by one of his grandsons, my uncle, that his father or grandfather came from Koblenz. I was told by another uncle that he came from Holland and was old, black Dutch, and was dark. My father used this term in derogatory manner. At least in my childhood, I took it that way. No, they really meant he was dark. Cold iron, out of Rowan County, North Carolina. It says research by Gerald E. Wheeler reveals that Johann George lived in Gopingen, Württemberg, Germany. One of William Cold Iron's sons was described as being quite dark with black curly hair. Okay, this is the guy that was being described like that. All right, black, so-called black Germans, the Cold Iron family, and always dressed in a dark suit. Carolee Cold Iron, Lincoln, Nebraska, another descendant of this family, writes, these Cold Irons intermarried with Bakers and Eastern Kentucky. They seem to be a rather dark people. A rather dark people. Collins, another surname, this one in Tennessee, which was coming out of North Carolina. This family, they claim to be Black Dutch as well. The Conkle, they were coming out of Pennsylvania. The Cook family, so this is in Kentucky, Cook family. The Counts, this surname was Americanized from German Kuntz. That's what it was originally. Crawford, according to her great-granddaughter, Celia Elizabeth Crawford Davis, 1845, 1937, always explain our black hair and eyes and dark skin coloring, all right, dark skin coloring as being due to the Black Dutch heritage. Indian heritage was denied absolutely. The daughter of J.J. Crawford and Sarah Gilliam Celia Ellison was born in Crawford County, Arkansas. The Crandall family, says Leela Agnes Crandall Stovall, in Oklahoma, claimed Black Dutch ancestry. When asked about her dark complexion, she would offer only that her father was Black Dutch and no more. It's because my dad, he was a Black Dutch, yeah, wrote her granddaughter. Texas politician Wendy Davis. Later, my grandmother would admit that her mother was Native American, she added. Oh, also, my mom is not an Indian, so, you know, copper-colored tribes of America. Crum, Godfrey Crum, anglicized to Crum, from Rowan County, they're claiming Black Dutch. Dick, Rowan and Wilkes County, North Carolina. All right, they're also claiming it. Eggert, from New York. Elliott, Menard County, Texas, the dark complexioned, dark-haired Elliots claim Black Dutch ancestry. They also claim Native American descent. All right, you see the pattern, guys? These Black Europeans mixing with the American Indians. So he's also claiming Native American descent when enrolling in the Choctaw Nation. However, enrollment was rejected. Oh, similar story to many people, right? How they were rejecting a lot of Indians. Elmore family, out of Kane County, Illinois, also claiming Black Dutch. Fisher, Greenville County, South Carolina. The Fleck family, they settled in Minnesota. Filippo, they're saying that their grandma, Dora, coming out of Texas, was short and very dark with blue eyes. Very dark with blue eyes. Fox family, out of Pennsylvania, they are low and not tall, small, and have black, so-called black features. The Fox family, Pennsylvania. George family, Jack George was born in Bessemer, Alabama in 1875. He claimed his father's family was Black Dutch. Jack George had dark, ruddy complexion, a dark, ruddy complexion. Mrs. Nell George, scantily, Charleston, South Carolina, okay? The Goody family, Larkin Andrew Goody, a native of Lumpkin County, Georgia, was the son of James Goody and Ann Sutherland. A minor, he was described by grandson James B. Goody as a Black Dutch origin and was relatively short, dark, wavy hair, and black-eyed man. Greenwood, out of Pennsylvania, also claiming Black Dutch, and then also in Bedford County, Virginia. Gristle, the Gristle says they were claiming Black Dutch, but it also rather think that she part Indian, as she was supposedly born on the Tawakonee Indian Reservation. The Grogan are claiming Black Dutch as well, coming out of the North Carolina. They also are saying that
they stated that the Grogans were Cherokees and the Harveys were Creeks. However, Cynthia A. Grogan Harvey vehemently denied that she was Indian and declared that she was Black Dutch. It says here Hamilton, Iroquois and Jasper counties in Illinois, right? They claiming Black Dutch. Hammond from Athens County, Ohio, Daniel David Hammond. His mother's maiden name was Nancy Newland, and she was also an Ohio native. He had black hair, dark brown eyes, and a very dark complexion. Okay, Hammond, Black Dutch. Haney, James Thomas Haney was born in 1881 in Hall County, Georgia. His parents were John R. Haney and Sarah Emmeline Mullinax, both Georgia natives. His paternal grandparents were Benjamin Franklin Haney and Elizabeth Margaret Martin. Maternal grandparents were John Mullinax and Eliza Adeline Hauser. Family members were described as darker complexioned, brown-eyed, and short in height. The Hardy family coming out of Bedford County, Virginia, they claiming Black Dutch as well. The Harlow family in Watsonville, West Virginia. The Harrow family, born in Georgia. The Hendrick family, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, to Tennessee, claiming Black Dutch. The Heifner family, the Helton family, coming out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The Hand family, coming out of Kansas, claiming Black Dutch. The Hensley family, coming out of Cherokee County, Georgia, claiming Black Dutch. Heightshaw family, also claiming Black Dutch, coming out of Maryland. The Holly family, out of Ellis County, Texas, they're also claiming Black Dutch. The Hollowbaugh family, it says according to family tradition passed to me from my grandfather, James Harvey Hollowbaugh. His father told him the family certainly Black Dutch. Our Hollowbaugh, sometimes spelled Hollabaugh or Hallibaugh, stemmed from a group of people who had the original German spelling of the name as Hollenbach. Nearly all branches of the family show many of the same characteristics: black or dark brown hair, dark complexion, heavy eyebrows, brown or hazel eyes, square facial features. The Honeycutt family from Tennessee to Arkansas, claiming Black Dutch as well. Hooper family, Hosenpiller, coming out of Fort Gibson, Oklahoma, all right, claiming Black Dutch as well. The Howard family out of Pennsylvania, claiming Black Dutch from Holland. The Huffstetler family, Cynthia Ann Huffstetter was born 1897 in Lampazos, Texas. Her parents were John Henry Huffstetter, born in Greene County, Arkansas, and Martha Frances Patterson. The Huffstetler spoke with a German accent. Descendants of this family are bed as having dark complexion, black hair, and blue eyes. The Hosey family out of Outgamy County, Wisconsin, all right, they're claiming Black Dutch. The Hunt family out of North Carolina, also claiming Black Dutch. The Infinger family claiming Black Dutch. The Ivy family from Gibson County, Tennessee, and later Kiowa, Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma, they claiming Black Dutch. The Johnson family, the ones descended from Pleasant Johnson, it says here, who came to Virginia from Holland in 1773 and settled in Dunham, North Carolina. So they're claiming Black Dutch, that branch. They're saying ruddy complexion down here, olive or ruddy complexion. The Keller, a Swiss native, it says here, doesn't say where they ended up. The Kimmerer family, also claiming Black Dutch. So they're from New York, and I guess they died in Ohio. It says Joseph Kimmerer stated his physical description as 5 feet 3 inches in height, dark-haired, hazel eyes, and dark complexion. Klein, Knox County, Tennessee, claiming Black Dutch. The Knickerbocker family claiming Black Dutch. The Kremer family in Pennsylvania claiming Black Dutch. The Lehman family claiming Black Dutch as well. They're coming out of in Sevier County, Tennessee, which was the area of the Cherokee Indians. It says, my family story states that Hester Lehman was Black Dutch and couldn't even speak English. Stories say she was Choctaw or Cherokee and Dutch. Her parents were Joseph Lehman and Anna. They were in Berks County, Pennsylvania in 1759 when the son Jacob Lehman was born. Jacob was not known to have been Indian. All right, so again, a lot of mixture going on, and yes, a lot of these people are both
Black Europeans and American Indians. Lester family out of Arif County, Texas, and it says the Howards and allied surname. They claim in Black Dutch. Littleton from the Illinois, the Littleton family claim in Black Dutch. Long family from Pennsylvania to Illinois, they claim in Black Dutch. The Long Luker family claim in Black Dutch. It says here from Wayne County, Tennessee. The Lyda family, who settled in North Carolina, they're also claiming Black Dutch. The Leisinger families from Bedford County, Pennsylvania, and Hagerstown, Maryland, they're also claiming Black Dutch. The Marians originated in Patou, Francis here. They ended up in the Virgin Islands. Some eventually settled in Virginia, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee. They're also claiming Black Dutch. Matthews, this Matthews branch coming out of Alabama, but they also happen to be Irish descent. So yeah, people traveling around. Says Matthewson claiming Black Dutch. The Maguire family also claiming Black Dutch. So some coming out of Quebec and another coming from Augusta County, Virginia. McLemore family, says here from Tifton, Georgia. A dark complexioned man, they're talking about Joseph McLemore, with dark brown eyes, he stood approximately 5 feet and 2 inches. He didn't want people to know he was Black Dutch because he was afraid of being sent to a reservation. What? So they were sending Black Dutch to reservations? Huh? You guys hear this? The Milan family from Bibb County, Alabama, also claiming Black Dutch. The Milgram, says here John Milgram, born 1802, is believed to have left Germany in 1825. He settled first in Rockingham County, North Carolina, and married Elizabeth Carlson Kangley. Their son, Frederick Epperly Milgram, was described as having a dark complexion, dark eyes, dark brown hair. He described his ancestry as Black Dutch. A documented account, the Milgram family of Southwest Virginia. Okay, this is documented. Miller family, this one from Windsor Township, Berks County, Pennsylvania, also claiming Black Dutch. The Milhive family from Pennsylvania, claiming Black Dutch. Minton, says the Minton family, my grandmother is said to be Black Dutch. Her ancestors were Minton, Jaden, Keck, de Board. The definition I've read, and it describes my grandmother and her mother. She's literally saying, and that's what they look like, is small, dark complexioned, mountain people, Highlanders. So the Minton family, that's what it means, the original dark complexion mountain people. Montgomery family, they claim in Black Dutch. Morehouse, Jacksonboro, Jackson County, Texas, said she always said that she was a Black Dutch ancestor, talking about Martha Maybelle Nesmith. And according to her great-granddaughter, she looked like an American Indian, but she denied that she had any Indian blood. Her father, Jesse Thomas Nesmith, was possibly from Tennessee, and her mother, Sarah Lovin Morehouse, was supposed to have been the Black Dutch ancestor. Morgan family from Copelands Creek, Sevier County, Tennessee, they're claiming Black Dutch. Hartley says Muhlenberg, he's claiming Black Dutch. This Representative Henry Augustus Philip Muhlenberg. Mullendore family, they're also claiming Black Dutch. They arrived in Maryland. Music family, music, just like music, right, with a K at the end, says from Valley, Tennessee, they're claiming Black Dutch. All right, and in Kentucky, Floyd County, Kentucky, Owen family of Fort Payne, Delcott County, Alabama, they're also claiming Black Dutch as well. The Pennington family, born in Fayetteville, Washington County, Arkansas, they're claiming also Black Dutch. The Phillips from Union County, North Carolina, it says that Enoch Phillips married Harriet Wentz in Union County. Their daughter was named Cynthia Hazeltine or Hazeltine Phillips. Miss Harriet Phillips described her mother-in-law as very short, with dark hair and a dark complexion. Pittman, coming out of Indiana, and then moving on to Kansas, they're also claiming Black Dutch. It says here that Nancy A. Pittman was the wife of William Gilham. Dark complexioned, all right? Dark complexion. She self-described as Black Dutch. None of her relatives came to see her since she moved to Kansas, said descendant artist Rudisil. Okay. Poole family out of Lexington County, South Carolina. They're also claiming Black Dutch. Price family, Proffer or Seaford family from Grand Prairie, Texas. They claiming Black Dutch. Pulis or Pullis, Audrain County, Missouri. They're claiming Black Dutch as well. The Quattlebaum family. They're part of the Pennsylvania Black Dutch. So she was born in Edgefield, South Carolina, and they're claiming Black Dutch as well. The Reed family, the ones from Union County, Tennessee, they're also claiming Black Dutch descent. The Reap family from Greene County, Pennsylvania, who migrated to Braxton County, West Virginia, Oma, Holly, or Braxton counties, they also claim Black Dutch. Reister family claiming Black Dutch. The Rook family in Jefferson County, Kentucky, they're claiming Black Dutch as well. The Richardson family coming out of Nashville, Tennessee, they're claiming Black Dutch. It says that Rosanna Richardson was born in Kentucky, 1818. My grandmother was very short, sort of square built, very dark hair and dark eyes. Her skin was dark also. Okay. The Rickles family, Northern Alabama, coming out of that region, they're also claiming Black Dutch. Ritter family, so they're in Oklahoma, but coming out of Washington County, Arkansas. It says, in fact, the family, Washington County, back to the 1840 census. It says, I did find that Georgia's great-grandfather, Daniel Ritter, may have been born in Prussia. All right, the Prussians, a lot of Sephardic Jews and Moors there had fled there. Okay, he was short, stocky, with dark hair and complexion, dark hair and complexion and brown eyes. The Rogers family from Texas says that their ancestors lived in Nansemont County, Virginia, Marin County, South Carolina, and Pack County, Alabama. And they're also claiming Black Dutch. The Rule family claiming Black Dutch as well, coming out of Knoxville, Knox County, Tennessee. Sextro family coming out of Cincinnati, Ohio. They're also claiming Black Dutch. The Shaw family in Worms, Germany, out of Richland, Missouri, claiming Black Dutch as well. The Chenault family from Clay County, Indiana, they're claiming Black Dutch as well. So it says Lily Clara Chenault, and it says that Dominic and Vassilaus of Lily Clara Chenault looked down on her family because they were Black Dutch. Some descendants suspected an ancestor was Negro, perhaps assuming Black Dutch to be a racial designation. But then they're saying they were reddish blonde hair, so that doesn't mean they weren't dark complexion. Shepherd, the Shepherd family coming out of Wilkes County, North Carolina, said they're mostly Black Dutch. That's what they're claiming. The Schoen family from Abington, Washington County, Virginia, they're also claiming Black Dutch. It says Polly Schoen Jack was dark complexioned. Okay, it is likely that she had German and Indian blood. There you go, the same combination. Simmons family from Pennsylvania, Dutch. So Abijah Simmons is claiming that. So he said, my mother said many times that when her grandfather Simmons got off the boat from the Netherlands, that he was so dark that people thought he was a Negro.
Uh-oh.
All right, again, he was so dark, people thought he was a Negro.
Huh.
All right, how do you think somebody from Europe that is supposed to be pale skinned looks like a Negro? Huh? Does that make sense, guys?
Nope.
Gotta break the spells, all right, and the cognitive dissonance, and just
Yep.
picture, yes, a Negro German, or
Lile.
a Negro Dutch person, right, coming from Holland. But he was Black Dutch, a fan from one of the many islands of the coast of Holland. All right, the Smith family, the ones coming out of Germany and Switzerland, they're claiming Black Dutch, right? The Snell family from Baldwin County, Georgia, are claiming Black Dutch. The Sparling family in Ohio, who traveled southwest Missouri and Oklahoma area, they're also claiming Black Dutch. The Stallnaker family from Boonville, Mississippi, also claiming Black Dutch. The Stanton family, natives of Madison County, North Carolina, they're also claiming Black Dutch. It says her father came from Germany, and she would always said she was part Black Dutch and part German. Strickland family from Mason County, Kentucky, they're also, and Miller County, Arkansas, they claiming Black Dutch. The Stewart Butler Potate family claiming Black Dutch. The Sioux family, they're also claiming Black Dutch. They are coming out of Bastrop, Texas. The Tambos family also claiming um, Black Dutch. The Tapp family from Culpeper County, Virginia, they refer to themselves as Black Dutch. The Thompson family from Surrey County, North Carolina, they're also claiming Black Dutch. The Thornberry family from Monteith County, Texas, they're claiming Black Dutch as well. The Townsend family of Tennessee claiming Black Dutch. The Tucker family from Amelia County, Virginia, they're also claiming Black Dutch. The Van Every family, Franklin County, Iowa, they're also claiming Black Dutch. The Vandergriff family from North Carolina, they're claiming Black Dutch. The Vogt family or Vogt family claiming Black Dutch. It says that according to family tradition, Lavinia Ann Gunter was a Black Dutch and Cherokee descent. All right, again, Black European and Indians. But what type of Cherokee, huh? White family coming out of Alabama. They're also claiming Black Dutch. Wickelman family from Jay County, Indiana. They're saying they are also Black Dutch. The Willimon family in South Carolina, they're also claiming Black Dutch. The Wingo family, they are all tall and medium built, have dark hair and high cheekbones. Some members of the family think they are German, Indian, Cherokee, Polish, or Czech. The Witcher family out of Perry County, Illinois, they're also claiming Black Dutch. The Wolf family in Pennsylvania refer to themselves as German. They're also claiming Black Dutch. Wooden family from Carroll County, Missouri, and also Fountain County, Indiana, and Tennessee. They're also claiming Black Dutch. The Woody family out of Sallisaw, Oklahoma, claiming Black Dutch. The Worthington family claiming Black Dutch. They're described as dark-skinned people, black-eyed and short. The Wyrick from Warren County, Tennessee to Carroll County, Arkansas. They are claiming Black Dutch as well. So that was just a few of the surnames here, claiming Black Dutch, just in case you guys were interested on that. All right, so we kind of reached the end of the book, guys. We read most of it. It's only 50 pages, and we read, to most of it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this reading. Wanted to make sure to finish it because I hadn't finished it. I had read some of it in the previous video, but we hadn't finished it, so I wanted to go ahead and do that. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it makes more sense with the other information we've gone over when we're talking about Black Dutch. I hope it's clear to you they are talking about so-called Black Europeans, not just having a tan or dark hair. All right. I hope you guys got it. It's not talking about tans. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, we're not talking about just tans or dark hair or just the Spanish Armada raping all the women and making them a little swarthy up there in Europe. That's a whole generalized hijack. All right, so the Black Dutch, they try to leave it as a mystery. The whole point of this was to show you that there's a whole genealogical historical context that most people are missing when doing this type of research, especially, when dealing with genealogy. A lot of the time, that's what happens because they told us all so-called black folks came out of Africa and all Europeans were so-called pale skin. So we have this misconception when we're looking back and reading these books of colonial times and everything. We have the wrong perspective. We're picturing the wrong things. So we're helping create the illusion, you know. So hopefully you guys understand that it's very complex. Black Dutch can mean many things, and yes, many Indians did call themselves Black Dutch, and many Black Dutch call themselves Indians. Both ways, both are true. Both are true. But thanks for tuning in. Getting pretty late here where I'm at. I appreciate everybody that tuned in today. Thank you for making the time to do that. Appreciate all the moderators, everybody in the chat, all the real ones, all the family. Appreciate all the Patreons. Thank you for the blessings, holding me up. I'm gonna keep dropping more videos, more research, before the year's over, so we can start out fresh, always. Buddha
Pura vida, mi gente. Much love and respect. Hawa, wow, right? Wow.
Ice in my veins, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes, made lots of mistakes, taking shots, skipping breaks, feeling lost, feeling great, popping off, singing straight, never stopped, never changed. All the squad here to play and I've got something to say, yeah. I work hard each and every day, I get lost in the words I say. I don't push pause, no I push play. I won't stop till I make a change. I withdraw on the things I make. I turn flaws into flawless traits. I build tall, never capped in space. I won't stop till I hear him say, oh, la, 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 la. And I'm up again. I got tired eyes, need a cup of blend. That's right, in the AM, that's my only friend. No light, just the sun coming up on the horizon. I lose track of time, yeah, I move fast and climb a new class divine, yeah, true passion shines. And I'm through passing time, I choose stacking dimes. You snooze half the time while I move passing by. I work hard each and every day, I get lost in the words I say. I don't push pause, no I push play. I won't stop till I make a change. I withdraw on the things I make. I turn flaws into flawless traits. I build tall, never capped in space. I won't stop till I hear him say, oh, oh.